After decades of being a transmigrator, our protagonist finally rose to the rank of Grand Preceptor, becoming the most powerful man in the Empire. But just as he was about to sit back and enjoy his success, two powerful cultivators suddenly appeared above the palace. Completely ignoring the commoners below, the two began a devastating battle. Their clash reduced the entire capital to a pile of rubble. Although dozens of his wives were killed in the chaos, our lead didn't cry. Instead, he burst out laughing like a maniac. That is because, since the day he became an official, he had used all his power to search for any trace of the immortals. He had commanded tens of thousands of armored cavalry and massive fleets to search the freezing North Pole and the vast Southern Ocean. He searched the void plains of the East and the endless mountains of the West. He had scoured almost the entire continent, yet never found a single sign of an immortal. Now that he was finally seeing real cultivators with his own eyes, he quickly raised his hand and used a secret technique to summon his reincarnation treasure. This artifact allowed him to turn his real life into a reincarnation experience, sending him back to where it all began. The truth was, he had already lived 2 lives in this world since he first transmigrated. In his first life, he didn't understand how this world worked, so he just became a simple merchant. He married a wife and lived a very ordinary life. It was only when his life was reaching its end that he finally awakened this reincarnation treasure. By relying on this artifact, he was able to become the Grand Preceptor in his next life. However, he couldn't reincarnate just yet, because there was still one very important thing he needed to do in this lifetime. Most of the capital's buildings had been destroyed in the battle. The protagonist's loyal followers took charge, not only pushing for a rapid reconstruction, but also allowing him to use the military camps as a base to investigate those 2 cultivators. Many months passed, and the capital was completely rebuilt. During this time, the secret agents he sent out were unable to find any trace of where those 2 immortals had gone. Since there was nothing left for him to find here, he decided he didn't want to waste any more time. He immediately activated the reincarnation process. Just like before, several options appeared in front of him. The first was to carry one item into the next life. The second was to remain in the immortal realm to practice cultivation. The third was to allow someone closely related to him to keep their memories of this life. The fourth was to skip all choices to speed up the treasure's charging process. After looking them over, he chose the fourth option. This reincarnation treasure needed to be charged. If he ever faced a fatal danger, it would consume energy to automatically activate a protective shield. His goal for this new life was to uncover the secrets of immortality from those 2 cultivators. With the experience of 2 past lives, everything he did this time went perfectly. During the imperial exams, his writing was even better than in his previous life, earning him the title of Triple First Scholar and shocking the entire world. After that, he still chose to work as a lowly county official. Many people in the royal court couldn't understand his choice, but they regretfully approved his request anyway. Because his reputation was so great, and he knew exactly how to handle low-ranking officials, he quickly made Wen County completely loyal to him and promoted his own trusted people. Next, he found a body double for the Prince of Langya to train as a puppet. Eventually, he worked with the double from both the inside and outside to eliminate and replace the real Prince of Langya. From that point on, he successfully took control of the prince's palace. Eventually, the puppet prince held a grand wedding with the granddaughter of a top-tier grand scholar. That night, he was the one who sneaked into the bridal chamber to be with the prince's new wife. A year later, she gave birth to a child. Several more years passed, and the emperor became gravely ill. Upon receiving the imperial decree, the protagonist rushed his trusted men into the capital. After his puppet, the Prince of Langya, took the throne. He filled the court with his own followers. With the Grand Scholar's daughter coordinating things behind the scenes, he quickly took total control of the entire government. Finally, he arranged for his own son to inherit the throne. He then appointed himself as the Grand Preceptor, once again holding absolute power over the world. Around this time, a secret agent arrived to report that they might have found the immortal realm. He said that deep within the mountains to the east, there was a heavy mist that cleared for only half a day every 15 years. During that brief window, they were lucky enough to catch a glimpse of many incredible structures. It looked like a magnificent city, with no fewer than 1 million people living inside, and there were many rare treasures and exotic beasts flying through the sky. Hearing this, the protagonist immediately asked if they had found the path leading into that valley. The agent replied that they had tried many ways but failed. As soon as they stepped inside, they were torn apart by violent, razor-sharp winds. He let out a long sigh. It seemed he would still have to wait for those two cultivators to return to the capital. Decades passed in the blink of an eye, and the day finally came for the two cultivators to appear. Just like the last time, they showed up right above the capital. But this time, just as they were about to start their duel, they suddenly noticed small metal projectiles being fired at them from the city below. Ku Hong, a man with a massive, muscular build, immediately summoned a spiritual shield to block the attack. He looked down and realized those tiny iron pellets were being shot from below. Ko Hong was curious about what these metal things actually were. Using his immortal arts, he sucked one of the soldiers up from the ground to inspect the weapon. After looking at it, he said it was a pity that such a device only worked in this world of broken laws. He then looked down and growled, "You pathetic mortals actually dared to strike at a cultivator?" With a wave of his hand, he sent a massive blast of flames down toward the city. Just 1 second later, the flames turned into a dragon and ravaged the entire imperial city, turning it into ruins in the blink of an eye. But as he continued to look down, he was completely shocked. He found that even though the buildings were destroyed, the mortals below hadn't been hurt at all. Dao Xuanzi, standing nearby, saw through to the truth and said, "Those hidden weapons earlier were soaked in mortal blood." Ko Hong was stunned when he heard that. You see, there is something in mortal blood called the mortal barrier. Just touching it weakens your spiritual power and can even be life-threatening. Both of them quickly realized they had been ambushed and immediately moved to get out of there. Right then, our protagonist shouted, "If you run away today, the news that you've obtained the golden core technique will spread throughout the cultivation world by tomorrow." Hearing this, Dao Xuanzi immediately spun around. Only the two of them knew about the technique, so they couldn't let the secret get out. Little did they know, our protagonist learned about the secret and the mortal barrier from their own mouths during a fight in his past life. While they were still dazed, dozens of cannonballs shot up from the ground. When they exploded, they were all filled with mortal blood. After both of them crashed to the ground, the surrounding soldiers shouted, "Immortal Masters, please stop resisting. We are acting on the Grand Preceptor's orders. If you surrender, we can spare your lives." Just as Dao Xuanzi was about to fight to the death, he saw a ring flying toward him. He turned around and realized the ring belonged to Ko Hong, who was taking his last breaths. He told Dao Xuanzi to take his storage ring and get out of there. After saying those words, he was gone. Watching from the side, our protagonist was amazed at how much damage the mortal barrier could do to cultivators. Dao Xuanzi thought another cultivator was hiding in the shadows, using mortals to take them down. He couldn't accept that he and his brother would die at the hands of such a despicable coward. So, he used his remaining spiritual energy, burning his life force to summon his sword. A second later, a massive sword hundreds of meters long appeared in the sky. As the giant sword was about to hit the imperial city, our protagonist quickly used his treasure to end the cycle and return to the starting point. This time, he planned to recruit the two of them. So, in his next life, after taking control of the court, our protagonist personally went to the edge of the abyss. According to his calculations, today was the day the mist cleared, something that only happened once every 15 years. But as he looked through his binoculars, his entire body broke into a cold sweat. Because down in the abyss, there were no beautiful buildings, only ruins. Even worse, a stone tablet was inscribed with the words, "The immortal path is dead." This left him wondering what on earth happened here. What happened to the entire cultivation world? So, he waited several decades until the two appeared in the sky over the imperial city. In this life, our protagonist ordered all his soldiers to fire at Ku Hong, while he shouted, "You there, Ku Hong! We've been waiting here for a long time on Dao Xuanzi's orders." Ku Hong blocked the mortal barrier bullets and was shocked. He screamed, "You despicable coward," at Dao Xuanzi, but the other man was even more confused. He didn't understand why mortals were using his name to attack Ku Hong, or how they even knew how to use the mortal barrier. He hurriedly tried to explain that he hadn't ordered these mortals to do anything. Before he could finish, our protagonist shouted from below, "Immortal Master Dao Xuanzi, why are you turning your back on us now? Didn't you say that after you stole the golden core technique, you'd take my people away from this godforsaken place? Because of your promises, we've angered the people. If you don't take us with you, my tribe will have nowhere to go but the grave." This drove Ku Hong mad, convinced that Dao Xuanzi was plotting against him. Because besides the two of them, no one else in the world should have known about the technique's existence. Dao Xuanzi realized he couldn't let this go on, so he used his immortal arts to trace the source of the sound. He quickly lunged toward the palace grounds below. When he landed, he found the voice was coming from a black box. He wondered what kind of magical artifact it could be. After a moment, he used his magic to blow up the speaker. At that same moment, Ku Hong caught up to him. He roared, "Xuanzi, we've known each other for 100 years. I never thought you'd be this kind of person." With that, he raised his hand and unleashed the fire dragon art, sending a massive blast of flames toward Dao Xuanzi. Of course, Dao Xuanzi wasn't about to just sit there and die. He summoned his longsword to block the incoming fire. Just then, our protagonist started shouting again, "Xuanzi, a man who breaks his word will never come to a good end. Everyone, listen up. Help Immortal Master Ku Hong deal with Dao Xuanzi." Hearing this, Ku Hong laughed out loud and said, "You brought this on yourself, Dao Xuanzi. I never thought a hypocrite like you would end up like this." Dao Huyen Tu was fuming, calling Cao Hong a total moron. "We've been set up, you idiot." But Cao Hong didn't give a damn. He immediately cast a spell to release his domain cage. As soon as the words left his lips, a blistering heat flared up, trapping Dao Huyen Tu inside a cage of scorching flames. Seeing this, Dao Huyen Tu used his own technique to shatter the cage. With a massive explosion, he soared into the sky, his sword strapped to his back. He then unleashed his ultimate move, summoning a colossal blade. Cao Hong, on the other hand, had zero intention of backing down. He had anticipated Dao Huyen Tu would pull a stunt like this. Right as their ultimate attacks collided, the main character gave the order to fire directly at Dao Huyen Tu. When the artillery shell exploded, it unleashed the immortal barrier. This caused his spiritual power to plummet, leaving him wide open for Cao Hong's strike. Before he could even react, massive trees tore through his body, and that giant sword in the sky crumbled into nothing but ash. As Cao Hong touched down, the main character rushed over to pay his respects, begging him to save the thousands of people in his tribe. Cao Hong turned around and asked, "Was that your voice just now? A mere mortal dares to interfere in a battle between cultivators?" The main character replied that he was only looking for a sliver of hope to survive. Cao Hong's heart softened slightly as he muttered, "In this world, who isn't struggling for a glimmer of hope?" Then, the main character mentioned that Dao Huyen Tu had made him a promise. He promised that if this succeeded, he would take them away from this place. Cao Hong sighed and said, "Dao Huyen Tu usually keeps his word. I never thought he'd stoop so low as to lie to a mortal. That immortal-slaying grand array is incredibly dangerous. Even for us, leaving would take an immense amount of effort. How could he possibly take a bunch of mortals with him?" Hearing this, the main character was completely shell-shocked, frozen for a long moment before he could finally process it. He suggested that this wasn't the right place to talk, and led Cao Hong to an underground chamber. The main character asked if it was truly impossible. Cao Hong replied, "I have no reason to lie to a mortal. Maybe a golden core stage cultivator could protect a mortal through that array." The main character asked in despair, "Does that mean a mortal like me has no chance of ever leaving this world? To leave the Immortal-Severed Land, you have no choice but to face the immortal-slaying grand array. You're just an ordinary person. There's simply no way you could survive it." He told the main character that he didn't have many years left anyway, so wouldn't being a local king here be a pretty good life? Then, the main character asked another question. "If someone could reach the foundation establishment stage like you, would they be able to leave?" Cao Hong burst into laughter at that. "Impossible. This place has absolutely zero spiritual energy, making cultivation impossible. Besides, you mortals are riddled with miasma. How could you ever become an immortal?" He advised the main character to just give up on that dream. For a mortal to cultivate, they must first purge the miasma from their body. Otherwise, even if the great Tao was right in front of you, you wouldn't be able to see or touch it. Hearing this, the main character trembled in pure desperation, asking one last time for confirmation. "Is there really no other way for me?" When the main character stepped out of the secret room, the stone walls slammed shut behind him. Suddenly, the immortal barrier seeped out from the rocks, completely surrounding Cao Hong. The only thing that followed was his blood-curdling scream echoing from within. "If immortals and mortals truly cannot coexist, then why on earth should I have ever believed a single word?" he said. According to Cao Hong, this place is the Immortal-Severed Land, a result of a massive upheaval in the ancient cultivation world thousands of years ago. In the beginning, not a single cultivator cared about the plague ravaging the mortal realm. That was until the first person in their own world got infected. The plague grew stronger and began spreading like wildfire among the cultivators. The primary path of infection was spiritual energy, the very thing cultivators need to survive. The plague spread through the world's spiritual energy, rapidly infecting the entire cultivation realm. Those who caught it saw their cultivation levels begin to wither away. In the worst cases, their cultivation stage would collapse, and they'd lose everything overnight, becoming mortals before their bodies perished and their souls returned to the heavens. In their desperation, cultivators vented all their rage on the source of it all, the mortals. Thus began a mass slaughter on a global scale, but before long, the massacre was forced to an end. The plague didn't vanish. Instead, it was like a beast unleashed, spreading through the spiritual energy across the world, causing even more cultivators to die. However, the cultivators weren't about to just sit there and wait for death. They began researching ways to treat and resist this plague. On the other hand, they proposed a plan that would be infamously remembered for 1,000 years, the Great Migration Plan. They herded all mortals into small worlds, devoid of spiritual energy, and used arrays to seal them off forever, ensuring they could never return. From then on, the cultivation world was free of mortals, but not every descendant born to a cultivator had the talent to cultivate. Over time, the world gave birth to countless mortals again, and within their bodies, the shadow of the plague still lingered. Because this plague specifically targets cultivators, any mortal who wishes to pursue immortality must first use the immortal-mortal barrier to purge the infection from their system. Long after that, this plague became the definitive dividing line between immortals and mortals. That is why people call it the immortal-mortal veil. To prevent the immortal-mortal veil from spreading further, the immortals made a pact to avoid any place where mortals had ever set foot. These regions became known as the Immortal-Severed Lands. Li Fan gripped the paper in his hand, wondering just how many of these forbidden lands existed. Very few cultivators ever dared to venture into such places. Meeting even 2 of them was a stroke of incredible luck. As a mortal, his lifespan was limited. Even if he could simulate reincarnation endlessly, he was still trapped within the biological limits of a human life. He was 70 years old now, and his maximum natural life expectancy was only 86. In the 16 years he had left, the chances of encountering another cultivator were practically zero. Was he really destined to live out his days as a mere mortal after 30 years of agonizing waiting? Could he really accept this? Was there truly no other way? Suddenly, a realization hit him. Wait, that is not right, Li Fan muttered. He leaned on his cane and walked into a dark room to question the person inside. How did the mortals from the Great Migration manage to reach these immortal-severed lands in the first place? Ko Hong, chained and covered in wounds on the floor, spat back. Why have you not given up yet? Even if you got out, what could you possibly do? You are 70 years old and you still want to become an immortal? Li Fan leaned in closer to him. You have lost all your cultivation power. If you return to the cultivation world, would you even be able to start over? Ku Hong looked up, stunned. What? Li Fan continued. If you help me find a way to the cultivation world, maybe, just maybe, I will take you with me. You deceitful bastard, Ku Hong screamed. Are you trying to trick me again? Li Fan ignored the outburst and made a calm proposal. Believe it or not, it is a glimmer of hope. Do you want to give up your life and rot away in this hole until you die of old age? Ku Hong let out a long sigh. If I had to guess, back then, they must have used magical artifacts to transport the mortals. Things like flying boats or shuttles. In the ancient era, the cultivation world was massive, teeming with countless flourishing sects. These transport artifacts were common back then. Unfortunately, after the Great Cataclysm, it was every cultivator for themselves, and flying boats became a rare sight. Li Fan was taken aback. The Great Cataclysm? Are you talking about that strange plague? Ku Hong closed his eyes and raised his shackled hands. The immortal-mortal veil was bizarre, but it was not enough to shake the very foundations of the cultivation world. The only reason the veil could spread like it did was because most of the world's cultivators had already perished in a massive calamity. A memory from the past flashed by. That is right. On the path to the golden core, it is either him or me. There are many ways to form a core, but even more cultivators are stuck forever at the foundation establishment stage. On a distant peak, 4 words were carved. The death of the immortal path. Li Fan looked down, frowning slightly. A world-ending calamity. Could it be that immortal arts cannot be practiced by more than one person? Exactly. Immortal arts cannot be shared. Word has it that in the ancient era, such a restriction never existed. Ku Hong replied. Back then, countless great sects opened their doors to take in disciples and pass down their teachings. Cultivators had masters to guide them and could ask for help whenever they hit a wall in their training. They would debate the Tao and spar with their fellow disciples. The entire cultivation world was full of life and glory back then, until one day, the efficiency of their cultivation suddenly plummeted. They discovered that the more people practiced the same technique, the slower everyone's progress became. Countless cultivators saw their progress stall. As their lifespans reached their limits, inner demons took hold, and a bloodthirsty intent began to rise. Masters, disciples, brothers, and sisters. In the blink of an eye, they became mortal enemies. A massive cataclysm began to sweep through the cultivation world. If you practice the same technique as me, you are blocking my path to the Tao. It was a fight to the death. Even rogue cultivators hiding in secret valleys could not escape, because those practicing the same technique could sense each other's location. Li Fan straightened up, leaning on his cane. If immortal arts cannot be shared, how do cultivators today even manage to train? What is the cultivation world like now? Ku Hong sighed again. These days, if you want to cultivate, you only have a few choices. First, you can join the Alliance of 10,000 Immortals. It is a loose coalition formed by countless cultivators to trade techniques and resources. Within the alliance, you can earn contribution points by completing missions or trading with others. Second, there is the Council of Five Elders, an organization founded by the 5 most powerful beings in existence. Their influence is massive. As long as you have the talent, you can join and choose a technique to practice. But the price is steep. You must sign a soul contract and serve the 5 elders for a set period of time. Li Fan stroked his beard, looking skeptical. From what you are saying, it seems like cultivation techniques are not that rare after all. Ku Hong lowered his head and gave a cold, mocking laugh. That is because any technique you can get that way is nothing but a broken, incomplete mess. Those cultivation arts were all re-edited by the major powers in recent years. Reaching the great perfection of the Qi refining stage is already the absolute limit. It covers 3 levels: Qi refining, foundation establishment, and the great perfection of the golden core. If you want to take it a step further and build your Tao foundation, you have to switch to a higher level technique. The same goes for foundation establishment. Li Fan listened, feeling puzzled, and asked himself, switching techniques? If I have to abandon my old art and restart from scratch every time I break through, wouldn't all my previous efforts just go down the drain? He quickly explained. It is not exactly like that. All cultivators must practice a fragmented version of the supreme primordial origin true scripture. This scripture is not a cultivation art itself. Instead, it is a specialized secret method. Its purpose is to allow cultivators to voluntarily dissolve their own cultivation realm without suffering significant losses. After dispersing your power and switching to a new technique, you can quickly catch up to your previous level. Hearing this, he could not help but be impressed. It truly was a miraculous method, though it was quite convenient that such a fragment appeared just at the right time. Only through this method could they ensure that every cultivator in the world would fall in line and accept the need to constantly change their techniques. Ku Hong looked up and sighed, but what use is that? A true art is incredibly hard to find. Even Dao Xuanzi did not know this until the day he died. He did not just steal that art and flee because it was a core formation technique, but because it was a true art that could lead all the way to the nascent soul realm. Li Fan looked up sharply, visibly shaken. A nascent soul true art? Afterward, Ku Hong continued to teach him the basic common knowledge of the current cultivation world. When a cultivator dies, they trigger a heavenly phenomenon within a certain range. Finally, they returned to the main topic. He had become much more relaxed while speaking with Li Fan. I once heard a rumor that over the past thousands of years, some mortals managed to sneak back into the cultivation world. Despite the uncertainty, he held on to his conviction. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Often, rumors turn out to be the truth. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, I will not give up. Ku Hong raised an eyebrow in confusion, muttering to himself, I just do not get it. You are an old man with one foot in the grave. How do you still have the energy to struggle like this? Li Fan pulled out a chair and sat down. As long as you help me find a way to the cultivation world, not only will I spare your life, but I will also take you with me. I will even return all of Dao Xuanzi's techniques and possessions to you. He emphasized the last part, including that nascent soul true art. Hearing this, he asked excitedly, Are you serious? Li Fan's reply was calm but firm. Of course. Having received his answer, Ku Hong quickly agreed. Fine. In that case, I will do everything in my power to help you. And so, with Ku Hong's assistance, he collected every historical record in existence, pouring all his energy into finding clues about the era of the original Great Migration plan. At the same time, he deployed soldiers to excavate ancient tombs everywhere, hoping to find even the smallest lead. Although this caused a wave of resentment among the people, and the officials submitted daily petitions to stop him, he ruthlessly suppressed them all. Unfortunately, the era of the Great Migration was far too ancient, and his remaining lifespan was far too short. After 16 years in the secret chamber, Li Fan struggled to walk. His time was almost up, yet he had gained nothing. His face was drenched in sweat. This body had aged to its absolute limit, like a flickering candle in the wind that could go out at any moment. Li Fan raised his hand, and a glow emanated from his ring. Before this life ends, I must check the items inside this storage ring one last time. The book was retrieved and hovered in front of him. The nascent soul realm. It is a pity I am still just a mortal. I do not even have divine sense. I have these treasures but no way to enjoy them. Then, another treasure appeared, the Dao Xuan Essence Sword. According to Ku Hong, once a cultivator dies, their foundation establishment treasures lose all their spiritual essence the moment their soul dissipates. Suddenly, something made Li Fan's eyes widen in shock. A system notification popped up. Item can be used for energy charging. Proceed with charging? Li Fan did not hesitate and immediately selected yes. The system received the command and began the charging process. He thought to himself that according to the feedback from the Huanzhen system, once the energy reached 100%, a second checkpoint would unlock. From then on, everything would be simulated, and when choosing to return, he could restart from any saved checkpoint. If I can really open a second checkpoint, it would be incredibly convenient. Heavenly treasures might be rare, but the cultivation world is vast. There must be countless extraordinary items out there. I just need to break free from these chains. Aside from a few commonly used spirit stones, there was nothing else of value left in the storage ring. It is time to end this life. The Huanzhen system appeared, presenting him with options. Li Fan chose to retain one item. Damn it, as I thought, I cannot keep everything from the storage ring at once. There is no other way. I have to choose this nascent soul technique. The system displayed Li Fan's linked personal data. Does this mean this technique now exists permanently within the Huanzhen system? Li Fan realized that with this, he could plan much further ahead. In his previous life, he had carried out a massive excavation of ancient tombs. That event had shaken the world, and even with the power of the imperial court in his hands, it had still sparked endless opposition. If the imperial court makes a move like this right after stabilizing, I doubt they can keep it up for long. But if he starts laying the groundwork now, in 20 years, there is no telling how much he could change the minds of everyone under heaven. As the river of time flows on, his sixth life begins. Under his silent influence, the world slowly starts to undergo subtle changes. In the 5th year of the Sa Din era, the Restoration School suddenly appeared, bringing several ancient texts to the capital to seek an audience with the emperor. These ancient books were of such rare brilliance that they shook the entire world. Their names were the I Ching, Tao Te Ching, Manhwa, the Analects, and the Great Learning. In the 6th year of Sa Din, the emperor suddenly fell gravely ill and became bedridden, leaving the royal physicians at their wits' end. Just then, the Restoration School offered up a mysterious elixir. The dying emperor swallowed that pill, and against all odds, it actually had a miraculous effect. Only a few days later, the emperor recovered completely. In the 11th year of Sa Din, the Jianghuai prefecture cracked a major grave-robbing case, arresting over 100 people. The governor of Jianghuai, Li Fan, did not dare to make a decision on his own, so he sent an urgent high-speed report back to the capital. While waiting for the imperial decree, a full month passed before the order finally arrived. The prisoners were not to be executed but were instead demoted to slaves and sent to the capital. In the 15th year of Sa Din, the emperor fell seriously ill again, desperate for the elixir of eternal life. He ordered over 100,000 soldiers to dig up graves everywhere, searching for any trace of the celestial pills. Unfortunately, no trace of the pills was ever found, and the emperor passed away in deep regret. Meanwhile, the grave-digging movement spread across the land. Before his death, the emperor passed the throne to Wang Langna, allowing him to once again pull the strings of the empire from the shadows. By the 23rd year of Sa Din, as a series of ancient tombs were unearthed, the long-lost history of the world was gradually restored. The earliest dynasty discovered was called the Kai dynasty. He offered a massive reward to the entire world, promising that anyone who found the tomb of the Kai emperor would be granted a title and land. In the 25th year of Din, the tomb of the founding emperor of the Kai dynasty, Yi Hang, was finally discovered. Just over a month later, the entrance to the main burial chamber was opened. Once all the obstacles were cleared, Li Fam led the group into the ancient tomb. The main path into the tomb was hundreds of meters long, with walls covered in vivid, lifelike murals that remained as clear as new despite 1,000 years passing. Reaching the main chamber, they found a space 40 meters high and thousands of meters long. The ceiling was embedded with countless night pearls, forming a starry sky. Mountain ranges stretched out one after another, appearing and disappearing within a sea of clouds. It was a mystery how these clouds were created, yet they remained fixed in the tomb, neither drifting away nor dissipating for thousands of years. Between the mountain peaks were invisible paths, and anyone who walked across them was struck with absolute wonder. Li Fam thought with a sigh of admiration that this was truly the work of the immortals. At the highest peak sat a simple thatched hut. The fertile fields around it had long since gone to ruin, but upon entering, they discovered the thatched roof was actually woven from countless gold threads as thin as hair. Li Fam secretly guessed that this thatched hut was clearly Yi Hang's outer coffin. He ordered, "You two, open the door." The soldiers immediately obeyed. Clack! The wooden door was swung wide by the two soldiers, and the sight inside left Li Fam momentarily stunned. The tomb of Yi Hang, an outer disciple of the Taiyan sect. Seeing this, he thought to himself, it seems this man once joined a sect called Taiyan, but he remained an outer disciple his entire life, never truly entering the path of immortality, and was eventually exiled to this place. Even before death, he still yearned for his sect, refusing to call himself an emperor and only identifying as an outer disciple of the Taiyan sect. But according to Cao Hong, those sects should have been completely wiped out during the Great Catastrophe before the era of the Great Migration. It seems there are many secrets still hidden here. Perhaps Yi Hang was the one tasked by the Taiyan cultivators to handle the Great Migration in this world. He just didn't know if Li Fam could find the flying boat that was once used for that migration. After searching the entire main tomb with no results, he ordered the restoration camp to excavate the surrounding area. A few days later, a report arrived. Reporting to the Grand Preceptor, among the burial items in a nearby grave, we found records regarding a flying boat. However, this tomb was looted long ago. Based on the damage, the robbery happened over 1,000 years ago. Li Fam's eyes flared with a murderous rage. "Not again! Not again!" he roared, flipping the table in a fit of anger. "Every time I find a glimmer of hope. In the end, it turns out to be nothing but a mirage, a total illusion." The study became a complete mess after Li Fam's outburst. He ordered a decree to be announced to the world. Anyone who found a clue related to the celestial boat would be granted the title of Marquis. In the 35th year of Din, Li Fam discovered an immortal's grave. A subordinate reported, "Grand Preceptor, a few days ago, a group of men digging up a small grave were suddenly attacked by a strange power. The casualties were heavy, and the restoration camp immediately sent men to investigate. But even the most experienced veterans couldn't budge that grave even an inch. He immediately ordered, "Bring the mortal barrier fluid and open that tomb now." Large buckets of red liquid were poured over the grave, and immediately after, the surrounding barrier began to crumble. Li Fam pointed and said, "Be careful while digging. If you find anything that looks like a flying boat, report to me immediately." The soldiers shouted, "Yes, sir." A moment later, someone came back to report, "Grand Preceptor, we found something among the burial goods that looks like a flying boat." Having waited for only this, Li Fam rushed over to check. Suddenly, his face darkened, and he was left speechless. This is the flying boat? Before him sat a tiny boat, barely the size of a person's palm. This small wooden boat right in front of him was the exact flying ship he had been dreaming of. After reading the rest of the inscriptions on the tomb walls, Li Fam finally understood the whole story. It turned out the owner of the tomb was named Tian Hong, a Foundation establishment cultivator. 300 years ago, he was hunted down by his enemies and had no choice but to flee into this immortal desolation land. In this desolate place, spiritual energy was completely non-existent, and he barely had any spirit stones left on him. Before long, his spirit stones ran dry. Without them to replenish his energy, his cultivation level grew weaker by the day. He figured that when mortals were exiled here 1,000 years ago, they might have left behind a few flying ships. So, he spent decades searching tirelessly until he finally discovered the remains of his predecessors. There was indeed a flying ship in the tomb, but what drove him to despair was that its core energy formation was completely ruined. Since he didn't know the first thing about artifact refining, he couldn't fix it. From that point on, Tian Hong completely gave up on ever leaving this godforsaken land. He left a message saying that if a future cultivator ever stumbled upon his tomb, he begged them to take his remains back to the cultivation world. In exchange, everything in the tomb would be their reward. Signed, the final testament of Tian Hong. After reading it, Li Fam thought to himself that with a protective formation outside the tomb, it wasn't surprising the owner was so sure only a cultivator would be the one to find it. Let's see what he left behind first. The system announced a heaven and earth treasure, the Jibu fragmented stele. He was shocked. A heaven and earth treasure? For real? So this is what has been guarding the tomb all this time. Unfortunately, Hon Chan didn't react at all. To force his way into the tomb earlier, he had already used up a massive amount of his immortal barrier. Now, this fragmented steel has probably been affected and turned into a regular stone slab. Let's check out the second item. In Li Fam's hands were the minor Hoan Chan technique and the Van Thuy records. He was stunned. Wait, why does it show someone is currently practicing these? Could it be a trap? No, that can't be right. It's been over 3,000 years. Forget foundation establishment, even a golden core cultivator would have turned to dust by now. So, why do these techniques show they're being used? Could it be that there are master copies of these manuals stored somewhere? After the Great Catastrophe, many techniques were rewritten by the 5 elders of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and other major powers, so there must be master copies. The higher-ups of those factions probably see when a technique isn't being used and just hand it over to someone else. These two techniques have probably changed hands countless times over the last 3,000 years. Talk about bad luck. The third item was the Tai Dien ship. After drifting through the world for thousands of years, it had finally fallen into his hands. After years of waiting, he finally got what he wanted. The system notified him that the internal formation of the flying ship was damaged. Li Fam didn't care. Even if the Tai Dien ship was broken, there was no need to worry. Tian Hong didn't know how to fix it, and neither did Li Fam, but he knew someone who did. 15 years later, in the 50th year of the Anchor Era, an argument broke out in the sky. Dao Huyen Tu, don't you dare push me too far. Cao Hong, did you really think hiding in the Immortal Desolation Land would make me let you go? Hand over the technique you took that day. Otherwise, I'm going to make you regret ever being born. Suddenly, a voice cut right through their shouting. It is just a core formation technique. Is it really worth risking your lives over? The voice left Dao Huyen Tu completely stunned. Cao Hong was just as confused. Both of them looked down and barked, "Who the hell do you think you are? I am Li Fam. Why don't you two come down and have a chat?" He raised a wine cup and laughed, welcoming his guests. My ancestor, Li Fam, said on his deathbed that 2 people from the Void Abyss would eventually set foot on this land. That would be the opportunity for our clan to escape this place. For thousands of years, my people have lived in doubt. But today, that prophecy has finally been proven true. We must have a great feast, Cao Hong asked. And how should we address you? He replied, this old man's name is Li Fam. Dao Huyen Tu was skeptical. According to you, your ancestor predicted our arrival 1,000 years ago? And what is this about an opportunity to escape? Li Fam's expression shifted instantly, and he said coldly, "What? Do you two not believe me?" Cao Hong spoke up, saying this whole thing was just too bizarre. They had traveled the cultivation world for 100 years and had never heard of any divination technique like that, one that could predict events 1,000 years in the future. Li Fam stepped down and asked, "Have you two ever heard of the Tai Dien sect?" Cao Hong was shocked. "Are you talking about that ancient sect famous for its divination arts?" Li Fam let out a long sigh, looking deep in thought. "Exactly. My ancestor, Li Fam, was a disciple of the Tai Dien sect. Back then, even though he joined the sect, he wasn't interested in cultivation. Instead, he was obsessed with the path of divination and calculation. Everything was fine until the world changed, and mortals were forced to relocate. With my ancestor's early qi refining cultivation, no one could have forced him to leave if he didn't want to, but he saw how terrified his clansmen were. He volunteered to oversee the mortals' relocation, and ended up staying here with the family ever since." Dao Huyen Tu nodded, and said, "So that is how it was. Then why have you stopped us?" Li Fam continued. "This place hasn't seen a single cultivator for hundreds, even thousands of years. Meeting you two today, I knew you were the ones mentioned in my ancestor's final prophecy, our only chance to escape this prison. When I saw you two ready to kill each other over a mere core formation technique, I had to speak up. Dao Huyen too let out a long sigh. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you might not realize just how insanely rare cultivation techniques are in the outside world. It is completely normal for people to turn on each other and spill blood over a single scroll. Li Fan speaks up, wondering if the guy really needs to go that far. The man is stunned by the fellow Daoist's bold tone. Could it be that his ancestor actually left behind a cultivation manual that leads all the way to the Golden Core stage? The two of them are over the moon hearing this. That is fantastic. If you have a technique like that, then there is no reason for us brothers to fight anymore. So, what is the catch? Li Fan replies that his ancestor's only dying wish was to finally return to the Taiyan sect. Before he passed away, aside from that manual, he also left behind a spiritual tool called the Taiyan boat. It is currently broken, but through the art of Taiyan, the ancestor predicted that thousands of years later, two cultivators would arrive at this very spot. One would be a master of the sword, and the other would be obsessed with artifact refining. Together, they would help his descendants repair the boat and escape this god-forsaken dead zone. The two of them are absolutely floored. It is spot on. Ku Hong is a refining fanatic, and the other guy is a sword expert. Who knew the art of Taiyan could be so incredibly accurate? Ko Hong adds that it is hard to imagine a mere chi-refining cultivator having the power to see through the secrets of heaven like that. He turns away, saying talk is cheap. He invites the two of them to follow him and see the technique for themselves. Dao Xuanzi growls with a threatening tone. What is the matter? You already have a core formation technique in your hands, and that is still not enough for you? Ku Hong just brushes it off with a laugh. Fine, he will not go. So only two of them head out, while he stays back in the room. He leads Dao Xuanzi to a strange cave. Dao Xuanzi is completely shocked. Is that the immortal mortal curtain? Li Fan replies, look, you can never be too careful. We are just mortals. To protect our family treasures, we had to do whatever it took. Take a look, Daoist. This is the manual my ancestor left behind, the Heavenly Mystery Jade Ring Gold chapter. It is a nascent soul-level technique, and currently, 0 people are practicing it. The guy is stunned. He never imagined it would be a legendary nascent soul technique. Li Fan smirks to himself. Everything is going exactly as planned. Well, was the old man lying? Earlier, in front of your older brother Ku Hong, I only said it was a core formation technique. I was just worried he might get greedy. Dao Xuanzi is impressed. You are incredibly cautious, my friend. Since Ku Hong is a master at refining, he will definitely try to convince you to put everything into fixing the Taiyan boat. Li Fan laughs out loud. Haha, then I will leave it in your hands. Once we succeed, he will hand over the technique with both hands. Ku Hong asks through a mental link, so Li Fan's story was true? There really is a family core formation technique? Dao Xuanzi replies, yeah, I saw it with my own eyes. With a dangerous look, he thinks, he is just a puny mortal. Why not just take the technique by force? Ku Hong asks, can we pull it off? He is just a tiny human. Dao Xuanzi stops him. Even though Li Fan is immortal, he is still a descendant of the Taiyan sect. That terrifying prediction ability of his is seriously creepy. If we try to rob him, who knows what other tricks he is hiding? Besides, how hard is it to just help him fix the boat? There is no need to stir up trouble. He thinks to himself, if we push him too hard, and he lets slip that the manual is actually a nascent soul technique, then everything is ruined. The next day, he hands over the Taiyan sect boat for the two of them to fix. Ko Hong is amazed, as expected of something crafted by the Taiyan sect. The craftsmanship is so sophisticated. The magical arrays are far beyond anything he has ever studied. If he can pull this off, his refining skills will definitely reach the next level. Li Fan chimes in, I am counting on you two. If you need anything at all, just let me know, and I will make it happen. When word gets out that the boat is finished, he rushes to find them. Ku Hong says the core power array, the shrinking array, and the cleansing array are all fully restored. But the defense and attack arrays are a bit shaky because we lacked the materials. Crossing the great immortal sealing array won't be an issue, but if we get jumped by another cultivator, it is going to be a struggle. Li Fan says, that is fine. As long as we get out of this array and back to the cultivation world, with the tokens my ancestor left me, I will find my own way back to the Taiyan sect. Ko Hong explains that this boat runs on spiritual energy. It requires divine sense to pilot, and it has 3 different size settings. They do not have many spirit stones left, but the ones he set aside for fuel should be enough for you to leave in the second form. The catch is, Piloting the boat requires at least the divine sense of someone in the chi refining stage. I am not sure if you need us to take the wheel for you, but before he can even finish, Li Fan has already triggered the boat's second form. Ko Hong is impressed. You really are something else. Even as a mortal, you can control the Taiyan boat. Li Fan just laughs. It is just a little trick, nothing special, but I really have to thank you too. After being stuck here for 1,000 years, there is finally hope of escaping. It is all thanks to you. Dao Xuanzi asks, now that the boat is ready, what about our agreement? Li Fan leads the way. Everything is ready. Follow me. 3 days later, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi take the technique and say their goodbyes. Dao Huyen too says goodbye to his fellow cultivator. Since they're running low on spirit stones, staying in this immortal-severing land much longer would cause their cultivation to fade, so they've come to take their leave today. The generous Cao Hong tells Li Fam that if he ever makes it out, he should look him up at Lin Tian City in the Pine Cloud Mountains. As Li Fam requested, he hands over a map of the area near the array's exit. Since they didn't have any empty jade slips, he had to draw it by hand from memory. Li Fam thanks them, and after a brief farewell, the two of them transform into streaks of light and fly away. Cao Hong remarks that while Li Fam has great character, it's a pity his time is almost up. Even if he returns to the cultivation world, he won't have long to live. Dao Huyen too replies that without eternal life, everything is just an empty dream. After all, didn't Cao Hong and his former friend turn on each other for that very reason? Cao Hong gets curious and asks what kind of cultivation technique Li Fam actually gave him. Dao Huyen too just laughs, saying it's definitely not the same one Cao Hong has. He tells him not to worry. Once he breaks through to the golden core stage, he won't forget the 3 promises he made. The mist of the Guardian Array still hasn't cleared. He wonders if Li Fam actually has the guts to charge through it. Cao Hong laughs confidently, asking why he wouldn't dare. Down in the void abyss, a solitary vessel appears, the cockpit of the Tai Dian boat. Li Fam calculates that it will take another 14 years for the skeletons to vanish, but he's already 71 years old. By then, he'd be 85, right on the brink of death and likely too frail to steer the boat. Having nothing left to lose in this life, he decides to test the true nature of this immortal-severing array today. The boat plunges into the pit at an incredible speed. Beneath the void abyss, a thick, blinding white mist swallows everything, making him feel like he's trapped in a dream. Suddenly, the Tai Dian boat shakes violently as if it hit something solid. Li Fam is startled, wondering if this is the astral wind layer. According to Cao Hong, these wind blades could easily shred a mortal's body. Even a foundation establishment cultivator would need to use their spiritual energy for protection. Luckily, the boat's protective formation is holding, otherwise the consequences would be unthinkable. Half an hour later, he carefully maneuvers the Tai Dian boat through the astral wind, only for a massive ball of energy to suddenly appear. Finally, he escapes the immortal-severing array. After reaching the cultivation world, he lucks into a rare manual and reaches the golden core stage in just 100 years. From there, his journey is smooth sailing, and 1,000 years later, he achieves enlightenment and ascends. In the immortal realm, Li Fam starts as the lowest-ranking official and works his way up until he becomes the immortal emperor, famous throughout the heavens. Eventually, he shatters the walls of the immortal realm and ascends further to the god realm. Starting as a lowly miner, after 10,000 years of grueling cultivation, Li Fam reaches the God King realm, becoming the most powerful being in existence. At this point, he regains his youthful appearance and trains for another 1,000 years before ascending to the ancient god realm. He finds himself as a mere gatekeeper at the bottom of the god realm, forced to start all over again. Suddenly, Li Fam's eyes snap open as he jolts awake. Was all that just an illusion from the illusory light layer? The boat has been flipped upside down. According to the map, he has already left that layer and entered the 3rd stage of the array, the reversal layer. It seems the Tai Dian boat exited the illusion on its own, which is why he woke up. Even though he was unconscious back there, the boat kept moving forward. He realizes he can let the ship navigate itself and just focus on providing the energy to keep it moving fast. A faint sensation from the Tai Dian boat tells Li Fam which direction to take, and he follows its lead, speeding ahead. The 4th stage is the flowing fire layer. Just as the boat's autopilot suggested, he makes it through successfully. Li Fam is impressed. It makes sense. This Tai Dian battleship was originally designed to transport mortals thousands of years ago. The cultivators in charge must have programmed secret routes into the ship so it could navigate the array automatically. Seeing how well this works, he stops steering manually and just pumps in energy, letting the boat fly itself through the array. Flowing fire, mystic ice, and thunderstorm. These places seem incredibly dangerous, but the Tai Dian boat narrowly dodges every hazard. He passes through the 6th stage, the thunderstorm layer, without a hitch. Li Fam finally reaches the last one, the darkness layer. Cao Hong said this layer isn't dangerous, just pitch black. Once he clears this, the cultivation world will be right in front of him. Just as he nears the end of his journey, a massive, monstrous mouth hangs wide open right in his path. Li Fam screams, "True return." The system activates instantly. Li Fam's heart races as he wonders what on earth that thing was. When Cao Hong and Dao Huyan too went through, they didn't encounter any creatures in the darkness layer. So why did he? Is it a trap specifically for mortals? It seems it would be safer to wait until the mist clears and the light at the bottom of the abyss flashes before trying again. Even though he failed in the end, the gains from this life far exceeded his expectations. Choosing to keep the Tai Dian boat as his reward, he immediately begins his 7th life. In the 4th year of Emperor Xuan, Li Fam leads his trusted inner circle to the Red Immortal tomb in secret. This time, he used bones infused with the Immortal-Mortal barrier to slowly wear it down. Once the power of the broken tablet of Chibo weakened and could no longer pierce the armor, he headed inside. The system notified him that an energy source had been detected. Should the broken tablet of Chibo be recharged? He immediately selected yes, though he couldn't help but feel a bit of regret over the slight loss of energy. But with progress increasing by 25%, he only needed 3 more sessions to unlock the 2nd milestone. By the 5th year, he couldn't hold himself back any longer and headed toward the eastern abyss. Li Fan stood there in silence, staring down into the deep, dark chasm where the thick mist had finally started to clear. He thought to himself, if he steered the Tai Dian boat now, he could probably make it to the immortal realm without any trouble, right? Seriously, he had waited so long already. Was he really supposed to wait another 15 years? Who cares if the Hoan Chan system isn't fully charged yet? If he kept playing it safe like this, how would he ever reach the Great Path? He had already tried this once in his past life. As long as he avoided that mysterious monster in the darkness layer, he could finally leave this cursed place. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light erupted from the depths of the eastern abyss. A stone tablet appeared, engraved with red letters that read, "The Extinction of the Immortal Path." Li Fan was gasping for air. What? How is this happening? He was completely bewildered. Just a moment ago, countless tempting voices had been echoing in his head, whispering for him to jump into the abyss. If that light from the bottom hadn't shattered the immortal extinction formation, he would have been torn to pieces long ago. 15 years later, in the 20th year, the Hoan Chan system was finally fully charged. With his confidence restored, Li Fan returned to the abyss. He steered the Tai Dian boat smoothly, all the way down to the thunderstorm layer. He stopped right above the darkness layer. Powerful winds began to howl, and the violent streaks of lightning started to flicker. The storms gradually weakened, and tiny specks of light began to glimmer in the pitch-black void. Li Fan used that faint light to search for any sign of the monster lurking in the shadows. Unfortunately, he couldn't see a thing. Seeing the light about to fade, he stopped hesitating and put everything he had into diving the Tai Dian boat straight toward the bottom. Right at that moment, the monster appeared, opening its massive maw. Li Fan thought, looks like my hunch was right. This monster has a pure hatred for mortals. Its entire mission must be to swallow anyone who dares to enter this place. Luckily, the boat managed to slip away from the monster's jaws. Li Fan pushed the boat to its absolute limit, racing back up toward the thunderstorm layer. He was confused. Huh? It's not chasing me into the thunderstorm layer? The creature stopped right at the edge of the darkness. Good. Now he could use the light from the lightning to see exactly what he was up against. Li Fan was absolutely stunned by what he saw. What the hell is that thing? A terrifying sea monster? A colossal whale? His Tai Dian boat looked like a pathetic little toy next to it. Yet every time he got close, it sensed him instantly. He'd have to try a different approach. Luckily, he still had time to keep experimenting. Over the next 15 years, Li Fan tried to breach the darkness layer countless times, but every single time, that giant whale got faster and faster at detecting him. So, each time, the old man had to struggle desperately just to make it back alive. By the 35th year, in the thunderstorm layer, he noticed that the giant whale only seemed to be tricked when the white bones dissolved. It took a moment for it to notice Li Fan. If he timed it right, that brief window might be enough to reach the bottom of the abyss. This time, Li Fan decided to go all in. He dived at maximum speed, hoping to clear the darkness layer before the whale could react. A hazy vision began to appear below, getting closer and closer, but then that terrifying roar echoed again. Li Fan felt utterly helpless. He wasn't going to make it. The Hoan-Chan system notified him that this simulation had ended. He decided to skip the option to speed up the charging process. His mental age limit didn't increase. He figured he had hit his ceiling and couldn't push it any further. Thank goodness, he still had 748 years left to burn. He let out a sigh of relief. In the 4th year of his 8th life, Li Fan opened Tian Hong's grave again. At least this life wasn't a total waste. By the 5th year, on the day the bones dissolved, his progress toward voidification was nearly at 90. But anything under 100 was useless to him. All he could do was wait patiently. In the 20th year, Li Fan tried again and failed. In the 35th year, he failed yet again. But those attempts weren't for nothing. At the very least, his control over the Taidian boat was becoming flawless. By the 50th year, Li Fan decided to stop trying to force his way through the darkness. He was old now. His reflexes and spirit were fading. Going down there would be a suicide mission. Instead, he decided to visit 2 old friends to see if they had any clues. High above, the same old argument from years ago was playing out again. Dao Huyen 2, don't push your luck. Hearing those words again actually made him feel a bit nostalgic. Li Fan used the promise of golden core techniques to lure the 2 of them to the Imperial Preceptor's manor. After 3 rounds of drinks, Li Fan pulled out a drawing of the giant whale and asked if they had ever seen such a monster. He told them, "Before my ancestor passed away, he warned me that if I ever had a chance to leave that godforsaken place, I wouldn't need to worry about the rest. With the Tai Dien Sec's boat protecting us, we should be fine. But there's one specific layer we have to be extremely careful in. There's a whale lurking in that layer, and we have to stay on high alert." Cao Hong looked skeptical. "Are you sure a beast like that exists in such a dark, empty void? Why haven't I ever seen this before?" Dao Huyen too hesitated. "Could it be?" Hearing this, Lai Fam grew excited. "Oh, it seems you recognize this thing, my friend." Dao Huyen too began to explain, mentioning he had once seen a record in an ancient book. Legend says that in the primordial era, there was a sect called the Beast Taming Sect. They didn't possess any high-level cultivation techniques, relying solely on a single skill called the beast taming art. With it, they could control the exotic beasts of the world to serve as their personal combat mounts. Among the famous creatures they controlled, there was one that looked exactly like this whale. Cao Hong suddenly remembered. After hearing that, he remembered too. It's called the world-rending whale. He asked urgently, "So, do you 2 know any way to avoid it?" The 2 of them took turns speaking. "We've only heard a few fragments about it. Creatures like that have been extinct in the cultivation world for thousands of years. There's no way they could know its habits." Lai Fam fell into deep thought. In the end, do I really have to face it on my own? He handed the techniques back to Dao Huyen too, and after seeing the 2 of them off, he ended his current life. In his 9th life, Lai Fam opened Tian Hong's tomb again. He wanted to absorb the stop-step fragmented tablet to recharge his energy. But unfortunately, Hon Chan didn't react at all. In the 20th year, the 35th, and the 50th, he kept trying, but he failed every time he reached the dark layer. By the 65th year, Lai Fam was 85 years old, a flickering lamp running out of oil. He was too old now to fight a battle of wits and strength against the whale. He stopped trying to force it. He let go of the controls of the Tai Dien ship, letting it drift slowly and naturally down into the void abyss. Through the gale layer, the phantom light layer, the reversal layer, the undercurrent layer, the mysterious ice layer, the lightning storm layer, and finally the dark layer. The Tai Dien ship passed through them all smoothly. Suddenly, something made Lai Fam gasp in shock. "What's going on? Why hasn't the world-rending whale appeared this time? I'm about to reach the bottom of the void abyss. I can't let this chance slip away." Full speed ahead, the Tai Dien ship used all its remaining energy to dash downward. Behind him, the world-rending whale finally noticed and gave chase. Lai Fam cursed. Why did it have to spot me now? Then it clicked. I see. So that's how it works. The world-rending whale is blind, or rather, it ignores objects moving at a constant velocity. As long as I maintain a steady speed, I can pass through the Immortal-Severance formation safely. Ha ha ha. The final chain separating him from the land of immortal severance was shattered. Ha ha, the world-rending wail missed its mark. Amidst Li Fam's arrogant laughter and the frustrated roar of the world-rending whale, the Tai Dian ship broke through the rift between two worlds and plummeted toward the cultivation realm. The space around him blurred, as if he were crossing through countless worlds in the blink of an eye. The crushing pressure caused blood to pour from Li Fam's nose and eyes, but he didn't care one bit. Looking back at the immortal severance formation, his vision seemed to expand to an infinite height, and in that exact moment, Li Fam saw a sight he would never forget. The world-rending whale, that massive creature, appeared. But there weren't just one. There were hundreds of thousands of them. Tens of thousands of world-rending whales were surrounding him, tearing open countless pitch-black voids. Moving further and further away, the vast cosmos appeared with infinite black holes. From one of those holes, a ship shot out rapidly toward a range of majestic mountains. His body covered in wounds, Li Fam stammered. Is this the cultivation world? His vision began to blur. To be able to see the cultivation realm before I die. This life hasn't been in vain. The Hoan Chan system chimed, announcing that this simulation had ended. Li Fam stood within the system's light, laughing proudly. 9 cycles of reincarnation over 5 long years. I have finally reached the doorstep of immortality. Facing the choices provided by the system, he had to pick one item to keep. He rubbed his chin, thinking deeply. I originally planned to choose the energy accumulation boost, but when I saw the list of items I could keep, I hesitated when I saw the stop-step fragmented tablet. In the end, he pressed the button to keep the stop-step fragmented tablet. He thought to himself, after considering it for a long time, I've decided to keep that fragmented tablet. It's the perfect way to test my theory. My 10th life begins now. He found himself standing in front of a cave entrance. Since I didn't choose the energy boost, I have to wait 20 years for a full charge. In the 3rd year, I headed to Tianhong's tomb. Without using the Immortal-Mortal veil, I pulled the stop-step fragmented tablet directly from Honchan. At that moment, the tablet began to slowly dissolve, startling Li Fam. The tablet brought from my previous life began to melt away like ice under the sun as soon as it appeared. Meanwhile, the formation from the tablet inside Tianhong's tomb grew even stronger. Then, in his mind, Li Fam imagined himself standing outside the tombstone, and a moment later, his tablet began pouring energy into the tombstone inside. As I thought, there can only be one of these unique treasures in heaven and earth. Li Fam rubbed his chin again, continuing his train of thought. 2 identical unique artifacts cannot exist in the same world. I used Honchan to create an exact duplicate. As a result, the 2 items merged back into one. Then, Li Fam reached out and placed his hand on the crack of the tombstone. He ordered his subordinates to use the Immortal-Mortal veil to weaken the fragment before entering Tianhong's tomb. The outside looked almost the same, but the fragment was less damaged than before. He placed his hand on the tombstone, sensing the power flowing out, and thought to himself, Hoan-chan still can't absorb it. It seems this tablet needs to be more complete before it can generate enough energy for Hoan-chan to continue the absorption process. He explained that he had stowed the empowered stone tablet fragment into the Taiyan boat, treating it as his essential gear for his future in the cultivation world. No longer needing to be a mere official, he stepped down as his 20th year approached, with his return-to-truth state nearly fully charged. I ruthlessly dealt with a long list of corrupt officials and tyrannical landlords, seizing all the gold and treasures their families had hoarded for generations. The image of him appeared, using magic to make every single coin hover in the air, because even in the cultivation world, one still needs to deal with mortals. Such wealth, of course, had to be prepared in advance. A gold-plated ship was created, leaving everyone in utter shock. When I demanded a massive amount of provisions, the officials protested. I didn't say a word. I simply enlarged the Taiyan boat until it loomed over the imperial palace. The sight of dozens of officials kneeling and begging for mercy was pathetic. The commoners saw this and fell to the ground in worship. As for the civil and military officials, seeing such godlike power, their attitudes flipped instantly, and they scrambled to help me gather supplies. The scene was a frenzy of people helping him load the boat, with officials proactively assisting while I wiped out another batch of crooked merchants. Finally, the Taiyan boat was fully loaded, and the vessel began its ascent from the deep abyss. With everything ready, I no longer had any lingering attachments to the mortal world. Steering the Taiyan boat, I once again reached the top of the void abyss, opening my mind to let the boat operate itself at a steady speed. The ship streaked through space incredibly fast, taking only a few hours, but to me, it felt like crossing between two worlds for hundreds of years. This time, I had adapted. The boat continued to soar across a vast ocean, and after a long wait, I finally made it through. I had reached the immortal realm, but as I took in the surrounding scenery, I felt a bit dazed. Li Fan stood there, completely baffled. Why? Why did I end up in a completely different place this time? He then pulled out the scrap of paper in his hand, realizing that the map Ko Hong drew didn't show this ocean at all. Then he muttered to himself, well, I'll just have to see where this leads. I wonder if I can find a populated area before the spirit stones in the Taiyan boat run out. As the sunset faded, I chose a direction and steered the Taiyan boat while searching for any sign of a city. The sea was boundless. I flew for 7 days and 7 nights without seeing a single soul. Suddenly, a large ship appeared in the distance, giving him a start. Another 10 or so days had passed, and the Taiyan boat was slowing down. The spirit stones were clearly almost depleted. Just as I was hitting a dead end, the silhouette of a ship appeared on the horizon. Li Fan stayed quiet and looked through his binoculars. When I used the telescope to see that ship, I was honestly speechless. Over there, countless people were clinging to pieces of wood just to stay afloat. It was a ship, all right, but it was a sinking one. It looked like it had been attacked by something. A massive hole was torn in the hull, and 2/3 of it was already underwater. Dozens of people were struggling in the waves, clearly the crew and passengers. One of them shouted at the top of his lungs, "Everyone, don't be afraid. I've already signaled the Immortal Master. He'll be here to save us soon, so hang on." Hearing this, Li Fan was startled. An Immortal Master? Li Fan quietly dove into the water near them. With a thought, I stowed the Taiyan boat away, jumped into the sea, and stealthily swam toward them. Then, I popped up gasping for air, secretly blending into the crowd. I even pretended to be on the verge of drowning. The others were screaming, "Immortal Master, save us!" He joined in, yelling, "Immortal Master, help!" Very quickly, that Immortal Master appeared, hovering in the sky. So noisy, he looked up from below, thinking, as a figure appeared in the heavens. Judging by the voice, it was a man. This person was using some kind of spell, and his face seemed to be covered by a thick mist, making it impossible to see him clearly. Feeling the sea suddenly go still, Li Fan panicked. The moment that person appeared, the ocean became eerily calm, and I realized I couldn't make a sound anymore. The Immortal Master in the sky raised his hand to cast a spell, and their nearby sinking ship actually began to rise. Li Fan's jaw dropped in disbelief. Then, the ship hovered in midair, being repaired by that man's magic. That Immortal Master used just one finger to lift the nearly submerged ship out of the water, and that gaping hole in the hull was fixed in the blink of an eye. The misty Immortal Master flicked his wrist, and everyone drifting in the water was tossed back onto the deck. Then, he flew down closer to them, demanding loudly, "Who signaled me?" A man in light blue robes stepped forward and knelt. This humble one, Su Changyu. The Immortal Master's expression was cold as he replied, "You know the rules, right? Once we arrive, you have nothing more to do with me. I've never met you, and I don't know who you are. Is that clear?" Su Changyu kept his head down and replied, "This humble one understands." He waved his hand, creating an illusion before vanishing instantly, leaving the ship moving on its own. I don't know what kind of spell the Immortal Master used. The Immortal Master stood at the bow, silent as a grave. The people on the ship also fell into an eerie silence. By nightfall, the ship reached a city. Half a day had passed, and finally, flickering lights appeared in the distance. It was a prosperous island, with a harbor where over 100 large ships were anchored. It was truly a magnificent sight. The boat glided through a dark tunnel, bypassing the main docks to slip into the shadows behind the island. It reached a secluded area where few people ever ventured, quietly following a secret waterway into a natural sea cave before finally coming to a halt. Several figures dressed in pitch-black robes stood waiting. After navigating through a series of narrow, winding paths, the group finally came to a stop. Once the boat was steady, a few men in black led the way to assist those coming ashore. Everyone filed out of the vessel in unison. 2 guards in black stood on either side to receive them. These men acted as if the Immortal Master standing right there didn't even exist. They simply ushered us off the boat and led the way into a massive hall. One of them stood before the crowd and spoke in a booming voice. "You lot will stay here tonight. Food has been prepared in the hall, so help yourselves. Tomorrow, someone will come to process your new identities." With that, the men in black turned and left. The survivors began whispering among themselves, and a young man with a ponytail was the first to speak up. What a disaster. We actually got ambushed by a sea monster. We started with nearly 100 people, and now less than half of us are left alive. A chubby guy in green robes chimed in, saying, I have no idea what my old man was thinking, forcing me to come to this cultivation world. What is so great about being an immortal anyway? I would much rather be watching dancers perform. The ponytail guy scratched his head and added, Exactly. Back home, I am the son of the Prince of Zhenan. I have enjoyed every luxury imaginable. What could possibly be good about this hellhole? That is when Chang Yu walked over and spoke. It is too late for regrets now. Why even bring it up? Each of your families paid a massive price to get you here. He spoke with an air of authority, telling them to stop their useless whining. If you actually managed to become an immortal master, immortality aside, you would have the chance to return to your homeland and bring your entire clan out with you. Eavesdropping on their conversation, Li Fan thought to himself, these people are likely just like me, mortals exiled from the god-forsaken lands. The old man frowned as he calculated his next move. It seems the land they came from knows a lot about the existence of the cultivation world, and even has a well-established smuggling route. Suddenly, a hand slapped firmly onto his shoulder. A man in yellow asked with a suspicious look, Hey friend, you look like a new face. What rank did you hold back in Great Li? Or were you some wealthy merchant? Li Fan remained silent, staring down at the hand on his shoulder. He suddenly swung his arm, swatting the man's hand away with such force that the guy stumbled back in fear. Li Fan's face twisted into a threatening scowl. The man stammered, My apologies. As he walked away, the chubby guy muttered with a dirty look. Good grief, he nearly scared the life out of me. One look at that old man, and you can tell he has been in power for years. He is definitely not someone to mess with. Early the next morning, everyone sat in the room looking like refugees. A man walked in and announced, I will be taking you all to get your residency permits shortly. Once you have them, you will officially be citizens of Luli Island. He added a stern warning. Remember, keep your mouths shut about things you should not mention. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee your lives. As far as anyone is concerned, you are all from Diyu Island to the west. Because of a natural disaster that destroyed the island, you fled here as refugees. If anyone asks, that is your story. Everyone in the room fell into a grim silence. Following the man's lead, the group obeyed the orders of a middle-aged man dressed in tattered clothes. They followed him through a secret passage. Under the watchful eyes of several guards in black, they finally left the cave and emerged onto the surface. Up there, everything was bustling with life, and bright lights twinkled everywhere. There were dozens of people in their group, making them quite a large crowd. However, the locals only gave them a passing glance before looking away. They were clearly used to this sight. Soon, they arrived at a large building. They wove through the city's residential area, turning left and right for what felt like forever, until they finally stood before a grand manor. A young gatekeeper went inside to report and returned a moment later. With a nod, the boy invited everyone inside. He led the group through a side door on the left and into a reception hall. As they entered, the place became even more crowded. 2 or 3 other groups had already gathered in the hall, totaling over 100 people. It wasn't long before it was finally their turn. At that moment, the middle-aged man stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Manager Zhao. The manager walked past them, stroking his beard as he inspected the group. These are all refugees here to register for residency. The manager's eyes brightened slightly as he glanced at the man and asked, Sun Zhang, are these refugees all from wealthy and influential families? Sun Zhang reached into his pocket and replied, That is correct. They were all rich families on Diyu Island. He pulled out a shimmering gold nugget and pressed it into the manager's hand, adding, Unfortunately, they had no immortal masters to protect them. When disaster struck, all their wealth turned to dust. Now, they have no choice but to travel thousands of miles to Luli Island for shelter. The manager gripped the gold nugget, his expression remaining cold. A few days ago, the disasters were rampant, and even our Luli Island was affected. The islands to the west suffered even more. I heard over 200 islands were leveled to the ground, and countless mortals were buried at the bottom of the sea. He tucked his hand into his robe and continued, It is only thanks to the mercy of the immortal masters that we are allowed to provide relief to refugees. When the immortals hand down their rewards, there will surely be a share for you. It is good that your Tianbao pavilion is so dedicated. Do not worry, I will definitely give a full report to the island lord. Manager Zhao then began the registration process for everyone, and soon, it was Li Fan's turn. The manager stared at Li Fan for a long moment before picking up his pen, ready to write. "What is your name?" the old man asked. "Li Fan." After writing it down, the manager handed over a slip of paper. "Come here and drop a single bead of blood on this." Hearing that, Li Fan immediately bit his finger. The paper quickly soaked up every drop of that fresh blood. The manager instructed, "Keep this spirit charm safe. From now on, it is the only token that proves your identity." He continued, "Whether you are getting a job on the island, receiving rations, or passing inspections, for everything big or small, you must show this charm. Do not lose it." Sun Jiang, standing next to him, caught a glimpse and thought, "Why is Manager Zhao being so friendly with Li Fan? He is giving such detailed instructions." It was already dark, and everyone gathered outside. The registration process was incredibly efficient, and the entire group received their Luli Island household status. After leaving that place, they did not go back to the old cave. Instead, Sun Jiang led them to the spring villa inside a large manor. Accompanied by two men in black, Sun Jiang stood at the front to guide everyone. "Now that you have your registration, can we finally sign the contract?" Hearing this, Zhang Yu quickly pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. He bit his hand hard until it bled and wrote his name directly onto the paper. Once he was finished, the paper quickly dissolved into the wind. He then said, "As for the lifelong triple contract, once we are fully settled, I will sign the final agreement as we planned." Seeing this, Sun Jiang rubbed his head wearily. "Dealing with you people is such a headache. If it wasn't for the Immortal Master's sake, our Tianbao Pavilion would have never taken on such a losing deal." Then he gestured and went on a long rant. "As residents of Luli Island, you can use your registration charm to claim a place to live. Additionally, during your first year of citizenship, you can receive a certain amount of free rations every single month." Zhang Yu spoke up, "We want to know how to begin our cultivation." When asked this, Sun Jiang began to explain. "You are mortals returning from the land of exile. The concentration of miasma in your bodies is far beyond that of a normal person. If you want to cultivate, you must first purge that miasma." He replied, "We already knew that much. So, how do we cure the miasma?" Li Fan could only watch from the sidelines. Sun Jiang, hearing the question, imagined a cultivator and continued his explanation. "There are several ways to purge miasma. The first is the spirit pool on the island. Soaking in the spirit pool for 1 day and 1 night will completely clear the miasma." He rubbed his chin, looking a bit hesitant. "It is just a shame that the materials required to open the pool are insanely expensive. Even as wealthy as Luli Island is, it only opens once every 3 years. The last time it opened was 1 year ago, which means you still have to wait 2 more years for the next cycle." Sun Jiang continued to analyze the situation, not to mention that the slots for the spirit pool are limited. The competition is fierce. You are outsiders with no foundation at all. How could you possibly compete with the locals? Zhang Yu frowned deeply. "Then, what about other ways?" Sun Jiang imagined someone studying a scroll. "You can cultivate the mystic yellow heart clearing incantation combined with special items and a specific diet to slowly purge the miasma over a long period. That method takes a few years, but it is safe. The medicine and the incantation scrolls are sold at the island's pharmacy." As soon as he heard that, Zhang Yu shouted anxiously, 5 or 6 years? Is there any other way?" Sun Jiang's expression turned chilling. "The third way is to become a lab rat." He froze for a moment. "A lab rat?" Sun Jiang nodded calmly. "That is right." A series of terrifying images appeared as he told the story. Some immortal masters are fascinated by the miasma inside mortal bodies. Every year, they select volunteers on the island to act as test subjects. At this point, even Sun Jiang looked a bit frightened. The masters use special methods to pull the miasma out of the subject for research. It only takes a few months to clear it all out. As the miasma left the body, visions of test subjects in absolute agony appeared. But the process is excruciatingly painful. You could say it is a fate worse than death. Most people cannot endure it until the miasma is fully gone, and they end up going insane. Zhang Yu's face turned dark. "Is there really no other way?" A figure radiating power appeared. Sun Jiang kept talking. "I have heard that direct mortal descendants of immortal masters can use heavenly treasures to reconstruct their bodies. Not only does it remove the miasma, but it also boosts their cultivation potential. Those methods are beyond what an ordinary person can even imagine. Even the Lord of Luli Island does not get that kind of treatment." Finally, He massaged his head wearily. That is all I know. If you truly want to cultivate, think it over carefully in the days to come. Then he turned his back to leave. I know it was a long and hard road back from exile, and you all have a deep thirst for the Tao. But back in the day, who wasn't like that? He muttered to himself as he walked past them. Unfortunately, cultivation is just too difficult. Even if you do manage to clear the miasma, being able to sense spirit energy and draw it into your body is still extremely rare. Why look for trouble? Being immortal is not so bad after all. Sun Zhang continued to advise them that instead of struggling for the Tao, they should just enjoy life and live for the moment. Hearing those words, Zhang Yu clenched his fists tightly. After Sun Zhang left, the crowd gradually began to disperse. I asked around and finally found the place to claim my free housing. I showed my spirit charm, and I was immediately led to the northern residential area by a staff member. We walked toward a clean but incredibly gloomy neighborhood. This neighborhood is packed with houses, so many it's impossible to count, and most are just tiny one-room shacks. But they have walls and small courtyards, so it's not a bad setup. After handing the keys to the old man, the guide leads the way out, mentioning one last thing: head to row 6, house number 7. Li Fan steps inside to find a very simple interior, just a bed, a table, and some chairs. He decides to make do. He flops onto the bed, thinking that at least he's settled for now, and he has those people from the exile lands to thank for it. Then, he rubs his head, his thoughts drifting back to Su Zhangyu. It's a shame that besides Su Zhangyu, the rest are just mindless mortals with no ambition. It will be hard to get anything big done with them. He begins forming a detailed plan in his head. His first goal is to eliminate the miasma. Slots to enter the spirit pool for body cleansing are incredibly precious. But with the countless treasures he salvaged from the Taiyan ship, winning a spot shouldn't be hard. He lies there, staring at the ceiling, realizing that being too flashy is a bad idea. A man shouldn't flaunt his wealth. I haven't built a foundation on this island yet. If I suddenly start showing off my riches, people will definitely come sniffing around. I have to plan this carefully. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Li Fan snaps. Who's there? A large, dark silhouette appears at the door and replies, "It's me." Inside, Li Fan has already drawn his sword, channeling his magical power into it. Once ready, Li Fan cautiously opens the door. The man in the yellow robe from earlier shoves the door open and demands, "You aren't actually from the exile lands like us, are you?" Li Fan is caught off guard. "What?" The young man, face twisted in suspicion, continues, "Who exactly are you? Why did you sneak onto Glazed Island?" Li Fan's expression turns dark and menacing. "How did you figure out I wasn't an exile?" Flashback to earlier that day. When Li Fan surfaced from the water, this young man had spotted him. He explains, "When I fell into the water, I caught a glimpse of someone rising from the depths. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me." The yellow-robed man points a finger at Li Fan. "But after thinking it over, you definitely weren't in the group that left the exile lands." Li Fan stands with his back turned, his face shrouded in shadow. "Well, look at you. You're pretty sharp, quite meticulous." The man looks proud of the compliment. Of course. None of those other idiots even noticed a stranger had slipped in. Li Fan keeps talking to distract him, slowly closing the distance with his sword in hand. "So, really? No one else found out?" The man replies confidently, "Of course not. How could those fools ever compare to Jia She?" Suddenly, a blade plunges straight through the young man's chest. He collapses to the floor under Li Fan's terrifying gaze. Afterward, Li Fan uses his power to sheath his sword. "You really didn't know your place, did you?" He looks at the body, sensing the residual energy. This guy thought he was so smart for figuring out I was an imposter, then he rushed over here to try and blackmail me. Li Fan uses a cloth to wipe the blood off the floor. "You forgot that you guys are also just using fake identities as refugees to get residency. You get a little status and suddenly you think you're a local." As he cleans, images of the Immortal Master and Su Zhangyu flash through his mind. The Immortal Master originally hid his face from guests, and Su Zhangyu at the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion was very careful to hide his status as an exile. The pavilion and the public didn't dare investigate him openly. Feeling the power in his hands, Li Fan muses. "Even that fat guy who came looking for me. Now that there's no body, as long as I play dumb, no one can touch me." Sure enough, over the next few days, no one asks any questions except for Su Zhangyu, who drops by briefly. No one cares that the fat guy suddenly vanished. During this time, I've been gathering intel around the island while calculating how to use the treasures from the Taiyan ship. Gradually, I've pieced together a map of Glazed Island. It's located in the Songyun Sea, a vast and endless ocean. Glazed Island sits in the south-central region of the Songyun Sea. It was named after the glazed fish that thrive in the surrounding waters, known for their delicious meat. A carp-like fish radiates power into a pill. Mortals absolutely love glazed fish. Even some pills refined by immortal masters use the glazed jade that occasionally forms inside the fish's body. Because of this, the immortal masters on the island collect a fixed amount of glazed jade as tax every year. The plan starts to take shape. Fishing for glazed fish is a highly sought-after job. If you catch them, you give 70% to the authorities and keep 30% to sell for yourself. A few days ago, a fleet returned from the sea. Not only did they have a massive haul of fish, but they also stumbled upon a shipwreck. Unbelievably, that wreck contained over a dozen chests of treasure. This time, the crew struck it rich. The rules for salvaged items are the same as the fish. You keep 30% and hand over 70% to the government. The fleet's return caused a massive stir across half the island. Even Manager Cheon, the head of finance, came out to inspect the haul personally. Now, everyone is trying to pull strings to get on the next voyage. If I can just get a boat and head out on my own, I can easily launder the treasures from the Taiyan ship. The hardest part is going to be securing a spot for an independent voyage. There are too many people trying to join the fleet, but after asking around, I finally found the key. The three major families, Zhao, Zhou, and Qian, have risen to power. Under Island Master Lu Li, there are three main managers. Manager Zhao is in charge of personnel, Manager Qian oversees the finances, and Manager Zhou handles security on the island. However, most of the slots for the fleet's expeditions are decided by Manager Qian. Both Zhao and Zhou have been trying to get their hands on those slots, but Qian keeps them under his thumb. Li Fan rubs his chin, deep in thought. On the day he registered, Manager Zhao treated him much differently than the others, and he still doesn't know why. He figures he should pay Manager Zhao a visit. The next morning at the Tianbao Pavilion, he realizes Manager Zhao isn't someone you can just walk in and see. So, Li Fan tries to go through Elder Sun at the pavilion, but he gets shut down immediately. A guy in black blocks his path. Who do you think Elder Sun is? You think you can just see him whenever you want? Now beat it. As he leaves, Li Fan thinks to himself that the Tianbao Pavilion is a business after all. Why would they drive someone away without even hearing them out? Plus, those guards didn't even bother reporting his arrival. They just made the call themselves, as if they already knew exactly who he was. He frowns. Could something have happened in the Dali realm that made Elder Sun suddenly turn his back on him? After asking around, he finally finds out what exactly happened to Su Jiangyu. A young man with a ponytail tells him that Su Jiangyu was so desperate to purge the miasma from his body that he volunteered as a test subject. Before he left, he personally signed his name on the last remaining contract. The young man sighs, explaining that since all three contracts were fulfilled, the bond has completely vanished. The Dali realm and Tianbao Pavilion have no more ties. Li Fan finally understands why the old man turned so cold and was dodging him on purpose. He didn't expect Su Jiangyu to be so ruthless and decisive. The ponytail guy says loudly, I told him not to be so impatient, but would he listen? Not a chance. If it weren't for his little sister being so sick, Su wouldn't have pushed himself this hard. Li Fan tries to come up with a plan. Even though Elder Sun is avoiding him, he has no intention of giving up that easily. He thinks back to that day when Elder Sun couldn't help but offer a few words of comfort to Su Jiangyu. The man isn't necessarily evil. He just likes to act tough and keep up a cold front. He's probably just trying to avoid getting too involved with mortals from the Shanjue region. Once again, Li Fan stands before the manor gates. He'd rather deal with someone he knows a bit about than a total stranger, so he heads back to the Tianbao Pavilion. When the man in black sees him coming, he starts shouting, You've got some nerve showing your face here again. You looking to die or something? Right in front of everyone, Li Fan just smiles, completely unfazed. I'm here to talk business. You're kicking out a customer before you even hear him out? Is this how the Tianbao Pavilion treats people? The crowd starts whispering, and the guard is left speechless. Li Fan is finally invited inside. A maid serves him tea, and he doesn't hesitate to take a sip. After putting it down, Li Fan smiles. Now that's some good tea. Suddenly, Elder Sun walks out. The Dayu flame dragon grows in the volcanic craters under the sea around Dayu Island. There are only about a dozen of them left. Now that the main island is gone, the Dayu flame dragon is basically a priceless treasure. As Elder Sun approaches, Li Fan shoots him a look. The Dali business is over. You and I should have nothing left to discuss. What's your angle this time? Li Fan replies, "You've got it all wrong. Elder Sunday, I'm actually here for a business deal." Hearing this, the elder looks a bit dismissive. "Business? A guy like you?" Elder Sun stays silent for a long moment. He pulls up a chair and sits across from him. "What kind of business?" Li Fan gets straight to the point. "Is the Tianbao Pavilion interested in boat slots for the expedition?" Thinking about the fish and the massive amounts of gold and jewels, Elder Sun finally responds. "Every single voyage brings back enough luli fish and sea treasures to fill a whole ship. It would be a lie to say the Tianbao Pavilion isn't interested. But Manager Qian has those slots on lockdown. Forget about us, even Manager Zhao can only manage to snag 1 or 2 slots. You're a newcomer. What makes you think you can get a slice of that pie? If I can get an audience with Manager Zhao, I'll find a way to convince him." Li Fan stares back with total confidence. Suddenly, a woman walks out. "Fine. Getting him a meeting with Manager Zhao shouldn't be too hard." The seductive woman continues, "But if you fail, we'll chop you up and toss you into the ocean to feed the fish." Elder Sun bows respectfully and greets her as the proprietress. Seeing her sit across from him, Li Fan gives her a polite greeting as well. "Then I will thank you in advance, manager." She rested her chin on her hands, acting cute and playful as she watched him. He seemed confident, definitely not like someone who was just full of hot air. The old man reaffirmed his stance. "My word has always been my bond, worth more than 1,000 pieces of gold." The manager gave a soft chuckle. "If this actually works out, my Tianbao Pavilion will expect a fair share of the profits." He agreed without hesitation. "According to the island's rules, 30% of every sea voyage is kept. I will not take that 30%. Half will go to Manager Zhao, and the other half will be sent to Tianbao Pavilion." Hearing this, the manager was a bit puzzled. This was truly strange. "Then why go through all this trouble? What is it that you want?" Li Fan replied calmly. "I only want entry into the purifying spiritual pool once every 3 years." Upon hearing this, both Sun Zhong and the manager stared in shock. Her jaw nearly hit the floor. Then, she pressed her lips together and burst into a fit of laughter. "Oh, please, old man. You are already up there in years, and you still want to follow the path of cultivation like a youngster?" She continued to laugh loudly in the silence of the room, clutching her stomach. Meanwhile, Li Fan remained composed. "To seek eternal life, I would not regret it even if I died." Hearing those words, the manager stopped laughing and looked at him blankly. Her lips tightened again, and she placed a hand on her chest with confidence. "Fine, I agree to this." She then walked him out and said, "Once the date is set, I will send someone to notify you." Li Fan was grateful. "Then it is a deal." He turned to leave and added, "I live at house number 7 on Green Pine Street outside the city. You can find me there." Feeling that something was off, Sun Zhong tried to warn her. "Manager, about that spot in the purifying spiritual pool." She replied calmly, "Although the competition for the purifying spiritual pool is fierce every year, our Tianbao Pavilion has the strength to fight for it." The manager flashed a bright, beautiful smile. If he can truly secure a fleet for the sea voyages, the profit from that fleet in just 1 year would be worth more than a single spot. This is definitely a winning deal for us. Her expression turned serious, while Sun Zhong looked surprised. "What is it?" The manager suddenly looked fearful. That man's eyes. They were terrifying. As for Li Fan, on his way home, he stopped by a pharmacy to buy the Xuanhuang cleansing mantra and the accompanying herbs. Even if everything goes smoothly, the purifying spiritual pool will not open for another 2 years. I might as well practice now and see the results. Who knows? Maybe I have incredible talent and won't even need 2 years to clear the miasma from my body on my own. Back at home, the old man sat in meditation on the porch. For the next few days, he stayed inside to focus on his practice, waiting to meet Manager Zhao. However, before he could even see the manager's face, he received some shocking news. A pile of mangled bones lay on the slab. Su Changyu is dead. Both the old man and the young man with the ponytail were trembling at the sight. When his body was brought back, it was nothing more than a twisted, mangled lump of flesh and blood. It didn't even look human anymore. It was terrifying. The flesh was still twitching on its own, making their skin crawl. Finally, the two of them stood sadly before his grave, in the pouring rain. Everyone who just arrived from the leaving realm was so poor, they couldn't even afford a burial plot. They were going to cremate him, but I couldn't bear to see that. I used some of my own money to ensure Su Changyu got a proper burial. The young man with the ponytail was actually the prince of the Genom King, from the leaving realm, Xiao Heng. He was weeping uncontrollably. Xiao Heng cried miserably, but I didn't feel anything specific, just a bit of melancholy. Li Fan began to piece everything together in his mind. This Su Changyu had a good character and a very firm resolve. While he wasn't a once-in-a-century genius, he certainly wasn't untalented either. Among the group from the Leaving Realm, I truly thought he was the one who could achieve something great. The old man looked up at the gloomy sky. Someone like him couldn't even pass the first prerequisite of cultivation, clearing the miasma. To die so silently. The path to immortality is truly cruel. The scene shifts to Li Fan, working hard at his cultivation at home. As I practiced the Xuanhuang cleansing mantra, I began to feel the weight of that truth even more deeply. As it turns out, I am not some heaven-defying genius either. Others might see results after half a month, but for this old man, a full month passed with no change at all. For nearly a month, I barely left the house, spending every day practicing the cleansing mantra. Usually, even someone with average talent would feel their spirit lift and their mind sharpen after 2 weeks. Their thinking would become faster, and the effects would be obvious. But after a month, I didn't feel a single difference. When a man in black arrived to bring him news, I wasn't in a hurry. I simply treated it as a daily exercise that had to be done. Another half a month passed like that, and finally, the people from Tianbao Pavilion arrived. The scene shows the old man finally meeting Manager Zhao. I followed the messenger to a courtyard belonging to Tianbao Pavilion, where I finally met Manager Zhao. Li Fan knelt before him and said, "Manager Zhao, it has been a long time." Hearing this, he tilted his head slightly. "I heard from the people at Tianbao Pavilion that you want to request a spot in the Sea Fleet. You have a big appetite. What exactly are you bringing to the table?" Asked that, the old man replied confidently, "A sea voyage is nothing more than a quest for profit. Steward True, I wonder if you think the profits from catching glassfish are even worth it. How does it compare to salvaging treasures directly from shipwrecks at the bottom of the sea?" Suddenly, he spun around. "Salvaging treasure? That is worth more than countless fishing trips combined. Kid, how could anyone be that lucky every time? I have been on this island for over 10 years, and in all my memory, big hauls like that have only happened a handful of times." Lai Fam remained steady. "If I manage a fleet, I can guarantee we bring back a specific amount of treasure every single time we set sail." Hearing this, his eyes turned a deep crimson. After using his soul-piercing gaze, Steward True calmly stroked his beard and said, "You are not lying." Seeing this, he grew even more confident and tried to persuade him, "I am definitely not boasting." I wonder how Steward True could tell. He stroked his beard and replied, "I was born with a pair of unique eyes that can spot talent, distinguishing truth from lies. Just now, while you were talking, I saw a soft white light surrounding you. It proves your words are true. No hidden agendas." Hearing this, Lai Fam was slightly surprised to think such a mystical art existed. On the day he registered, Steward True's attitude toward him had been a bit unusual. Did he see something back then? He recalled the scene from that day, his expression relaxing as he answered, "I only saw that you were destined for extraordinary wealth. At the same time, your hands are stained with no small amount of blood. You are clearly no ordinary man. That is why I was a bit more polite to you, just to plant the seeds of a good relationship." Lai Fam stood beside him and followed up. "So, on the day I registered, you already knew that the words of the Tianbao Pavilion elder were not true." Steward True acted indifferent. "True or false? What does it matter? With an immortal master guarding this island, there is no need to fear trouble. As long as you follow the rules, no one will touch you." As the faint silhouette of that immortal master appeared, Steward True added with a thoughtful look, "Besides, taking in refugees was the immortal master's direct order. The elder brought so many refugees to Lu Li Island. Why would I make things difficult for him?" Hearing this, Li Fam clasped his hands in gratitude. "So that is how it is. Since you can see I am telling the truth, could you consider moving me to a position out at sea?" He sat down at the table, composed. "You are a newcomer, with no foundation. If I suddenly hand a fleet over to you, it will definitely cause a lot of resentment." He stroked his beard and continued his analysis. "How about this? Next time the fleet sets sail, you go with them first. If you can truly salvage treasure every single time, it won't take many trips. The crew will definitely respect you. Only then can you rightfully take command of the fleet." Finding the plan reasonable, he agreed. "Steward True, you have thought of everything." Hearing this shocking news, the manager was also stunned. "What? He actually convinced Steward True that easily?" Tun Truong replied, That's right. The manager began to speculate. Could it be he isn't bragging? Is he really that certain he can get it done? Tan Truong chimed in. I have no idea what his secret is. She then gave a stern order. Give him the deed to that vacant house on East Street. Hearing this order, Tan Truong jumped in surprise. What? He hurriedly tried to stop her. Manager, we paid a high price for that house to bribe. Steward Tien, how can we just give it away like this? Even if we want to give it to him, we should at least wait until he helps us secure the fleet first. But she remained firm, crossing her arms. Just do as I say. By the time that happens, a small house won't be enough to win his favor anymore. Ton Trung sent someone to deliver the property deed to me, and of course, I didn't refuse. There wasn't much to pack anyway. Within the day, I moved into the small courtyard on East Street. Compared to the slums outside the city, the environment here was much better. I then turned down the maids sent by Tianbao Pavilion. From then on, I lived here, quietly waiting for the next voyage. I thought it wouldn't be long, but an unexpected disaster pushed that date far into the distance. The wind calamity is here. Everyone ran in terror, screaming at the top of their lungs. Everyone get inside, the wind calamity is coming. Immortal Master, protect us. Mom, where are you? The storm is here. Lai Pham, who was meditating, suddenly snapped his eyes open and rushed out of the room. Outside, the wind and waves crashed down like a nightmare. Seawater and tornadoes swept through, tearing houses apart. A voice boomed from above. The island protection array is active. Do not be afraid. Stay inside your homes. No one is permitted to go out. The people knelt down in profound gratitude, bowing their heads. The Immortal Master is merciful. Lai Pham looked up, thinking to himself. This protection array has a flowing green light, with mystical talismans appearing and disappearing. It looks incredible. That sound just now, it was like a ghost's wail. Even the rain is being blocked by this curtain of light. He observed carefully. Chaos outside, but total calm within. Is this the power of the immortals? Lai Pham's eyes widened, his brow furrowing. Suddenly, bolts of lightning struck from the heavens, but the shield held firm. He collapsed, spitting out a mouthful of blood. That was heavenly thunder. Even the residual shock from it hitting the array has this much power. Li Fan braced himself with one hand, looking up at the sky with gritted teeth. What? There is still more coming? Outside, lightning continued to strike down, and the waves roared like a savage demon. At that moment, the island was like a black hole, sucking in both the seawater and the thunder, pulling them all into one chaotic center. Li Fan stood up abruptly, his eyes wide with disbelief. Was his life really going to end right here? Luckily, this protective barrier was much more reliable than he had imagined. The massive array held firm and refused to shatter. It stayed like that for God knows how long, until the massive waves finally began to settle. But it was only a temporary calm. The wind calamity arrived in a flash, but it was agonizingly slow to leave. In the midst of the wind and rain, it was impossible to tell day from night. I felt like about 2 or 3 days had passed before the storm finally retreated. According to the islanders, this particular wind calamity was actually considered small. They said the one 15 years ago was several times more powerful than this. Back then, the protection array almost buckled, and they were forced to shrink the protected area just to survive. After that disaster passed, Luli Island was left with only 1/3 of its original size. It took over 10 years after that storm for Luli Island to recover its strength by taking in refugees from all over the sea. The wind calamity? So this is what it actually looks like? The power of heaven and earth is truly terrifying. A few days after the storm had passed, every resident on Luli Island received orders. Each household was required to check if the protective barrier had sustained any damage near them. The inspection method was simple enough. The Luli mansion would distribute a spirit charm to everyone. All you had to do was keep the charm in your house for a few days and watch to see if any red light leaked out of it. A blurry figure reached out and spoke. There are 367,800 points in this protection array. We must ensure that not a single point shows any abnormality. The supervisor hung the charm up high, and it emitted a brilliant green glow. Under the will of the Immortal Master, and for the sake of their own lives, all business on Luli Island was put on hold to prioritize the maintenance of the array. Usually, the Immortal Master would handle the inspections himself. But this time, word got out that the spirit stones powering the array were almost depleted. Because of that, the Immortal Master had to return to Wanxian Island to get more. The array's self-check required the charms to flash 360 times to complete one small cycle. Then, 360 small cycles made up one grand cycle. As long as no red light appeared during a full grand cycle, it meant the array was perfectly fine. Li Fan leaned on his hand, staring at the charm and lost in thought. This protection array is so massive, yet so incredibly intricate. I can't even imagine how something like this was even built. 5 days later, the entire population of the island breathed a collective sigh of relief. The array was undamaged. Once the Immortal Master returned, everyone finally felt safe again. Life on Luli Island slowly began to return to normal. Over the next few months, refugees from other islands occasionally drifted to Luli Island, seeking shelter. These lucky survivors were only a small fraction of the original population. Most of the people from their islands had perished in the wind calamity not too long ago. The Cloud Pine Sea was vast and boundless, with countless islands scattered about. Only a few islands with special resources were lucky enough to have an immortal master guarding them. I haven't been idle these past few months either. I've been practicing the mystic yellow heart-clearing incantation every single day, and I've finally seen some results. My biological and mental age limits have increased once again. Even though it wasn't by much, it was enough to keep my spirits high. Another month passed, and I finally received the message sent by Manager Zhao. The wind calamity over the Cloud Pine Sea had completely vanished. The next fleet was preparing to set sail. 3 days later, at the Luli Island harbor, Li Fan stood below, inspecting the ship and thinking to himself, "This must be the Kang Yuan the ship manager Zhao told me to find." As he stepped onto the deck, he overheard 2 workers grumbling. "I have no idea what the island master is thinking, making us take some kind of exam. If the fleet's harvest is too low this time, we'll be marked as failing. If we lose our license to go to sea, how are we supposed to survive?" The other man sighed in response. "Don't even get me started. Isn't it all because of that storm? I heard the protection array on Coral Island to the south completely shattered. The entire island was wiped off the map, and now, the resources Coral Island was supposed to provide have all been dumped onto our shoulders here at Luli Island." The whole group was scratching their heads in frustration. "How can this be? How are we going to make it through next month? I heard it's just temporary. We just need to make up for the shortage for now." A tall, sturdy man walked over and barked at them. "Look at you lot, acting all pathetic. Why don't you look on the bright side for once?" Zhang Haoba stood with his arms crossed, glancing at them sideways. "Doesn't the top rank get a reward? Our share of the catch goes up from 3 parts to 5 parts. The workers slumped their shoulders and replied dejectedly, "Boss, stop dreaming. You know our fishing skills as well as anyone. We barely manage to hit our basic quotas every time." He's right. The way I see it, this is probably going to be our very last trip to sea. Maybe we should just not come back. Being a carefree pirate sounds a hell of a lot better than this. The man suddenly smirked. "Don't you worry. We have a real talent on board this time." Haoba suddenly reached out toward Li Fan. "This man is going to make sure everyone comes home with pockets full of gold." The crew looked at Li Fan with total disbelief. "Him? He looks so soft and pale. Has he even been out on the water before?" Haoba suddenly shouted, cutting them off. "You blind fools. You wouldn't know a VIP if he bit you. This gentleman is a high-level talent personally invited by Manager Zhao. Soon, someone will be taking over this ship of ours. I want you all to be polite to him." They immediately protested. "Boss, you've been the captain of the Kang Yuan for nearly 10 years now. How can you just give it up? You saved my life, boss. I won't stand for it. If they want to kick you out, I, Lu San, will be the first to object." Haoba said nothing, only lowering his head with a soft grunt. The others were still shouting in anger. What if we just toss him into the sea to feed the fish? After all, one death at sea is nothing out of the ordinary. Only then did he reach out to calm them down. "Quiet down, everyone. Settle down. I know you all respect me, Zhang Haoba, but the Kang Yuan is Manager Zhao's property. We're just risking our lives for him. If Manager Zhao says he wants a change, there's nothing I can do." Li Fan let out a cold snort, thinking to himself, "Just you wait." He raised a hand and spoke up loudly. "You don't trust me? Do you think Manager Zhao misjudged me? Since I've made a promise to Manager Zhao that I can find treasure every time we set sail, I won't let you down." The crowd started to waver. Does this kid really have some skills? Maybe. Maybe it's true. Manager Zhao has a sharp eye. He's never been wrong before. Haoba, who had been pleased a moment ago, was now shaking with rage. He suddenly roared, "What do you mean, finding treasure every time? I don't buy it. You're clearly just using connections to steal my captain's seat. Do you think I'm stupid?" Haoba turned around and yelled, "I want to see how you handle this." The Kangyuan began to move without any wind. It sailed out of the port toward the open sea, not by the wind, but powered by a miniature formation fueled by spirit stones. The ship was also equipped with a spirit compass to detect glass fish in the surrounding waters. The compass would give directions, but the ocean is vast, and its range is limited. That's why they needed a highly experienced crew to narrow down where the schools of fish might be. But when violent storms hit or the fish migrate, experience becomes useless. Then, it's all down to luck. And it seemed the Kangyuan's luck was running thin. Over 2 weeks had passed, and aside from catching some common fish and finding some ordinary sea minerals, they had no major haul. The crew members all looked miserable. Even Zhang Haoba was getting anxious. After all, the lowest-ranking ship this season would face punishment. He looked at the sky and made a decision. We've barely caught anything this time. We might end up with the smallest haul. Let's hope for a chance in the next few days. May the ancestors protect us. Seeing Li Fan step out, he called out, "So, you finally decided to show your face? If you hadn't been taking food every day, I would have thought you died in there." Li Fan then made a request. "I need a small boat. I've spotted treasure." Hearing this, the whole crew shouted in shock. "What?" Haoba, unable to believe it, pointed right at Li Fan's face and yelled, "You're not joking, are you?" He calmly continued, "Get a small boat ready for me. I see treasures deep beneath the sea. They're glowing, just waiting to be salvaged." Li Fan suddenly lowered his head and spoke in a low voice. "The window is closing, the light is fading, and I'm losing the coordinates." Panicked, Haoba quickly pointed and ordered, "Quick, get the boat ready." 2 men jumped and replied, "Yes, sir." Li Fan got the small boat as requested. "Don't come near, wait for my signal." The crew members asked in unison, "Why?" Holding the oars, he calmly replied, "You guys are too loud. You'll break my concentration." They were left speechless by his answer. Suddenly, someone asked, "Boss, is there a chance he's running away?" He immediately snapped, "What kind of nonsense is that? We're in the middle of nowhere, and he has no food. Where could he possibly go?" The sky turned pitch black. A signal flare went up. "Steer the ship over there, now." When they arrived, Li Fan said, "The treasure is right here." Haoba turned and ordered, "Into the water, cast the nets." The men behind him shouted, "Yes, sir." After salvaging for a while, he panted as he looked at the pile of wealth. 16 chests of gold, silver, and jewels. One man ran over excitedly, "Boss, Mr. Li wasn't bragging. He really can help us fill the ship." "It's actually true? That guy can really find treasure on the seabed?" This kind of ability is terrifying. Images of both men flashed through Haoba's mind. He's an extraordinary person, just like Manager Zhao. "Zhang Haoba, you finally met someone truly important. You have to seize this opportunity. If you can't handle it, then just give up. It's pathetic that you actually thought they were coming to steal this tiny fleet of yours." He walked to the edge of the ship, looking at Li Fan and thinking to himself, "No, I have to go apologize right now." Immediately, Li Fan slid across the water on a rope to observe. As soon as he stepped onto the ship, Zhang Haoba clasped his hands to apologize. With a polite face, he sent him off, and Li Fan went back to his room to rest. Having secured the treasure, the Shangyuan stopped fishing and immediately turned the ship back toward Luli Island. After all, with such a massive haul, the entire crew wouldn't feel safe until they were back on the island. Zhang Haoba gave his orders, "Wait a bit before docking. Liu San, sneak into the water and tell Manager Zhao to personally send people to count the haul. If everything goes as planned, our fleet should have the biggest harvest this time around. According to the rules, we get to keep 50%. I don't trust outsiders to do the count. They might accidentally miss something if they aren't our own people." The crowd cheered, saying the boss was right, even a small loss would break their hearts. After waiting for a while, the Shangyuan docked. The usual inspectors were blocked by Zhang Haoba and a group of sailors. "Zhang Haoba, what's the meaning of this? Why won't you let us on board to count the goods? Looking at how high your ship is sitting in the water, I bet you came back empty-handed, didn't you? Looks like your days as captain are numbered." The crew grew restless, shouting, "What did you just say?" But Zhang Haoba held them back, telling them not to waste their breath arguing. Li Fan stood behind them, thinking that there was clearly a reason Zhang Haoba was able to hold on to his position as captain of the Shangyuan. He hesitated, noting that only his background and lack of experience were holding him back. Soon, Manager Zhao personally led a group over. More than 16 chests of jewels were carried off the ship right in front of everyone, sending the entire harbor into a frenzy. Consequently, the news of the Shangwan's massive haul spread like wildfire, quickly reaching every corner of Luli Island. Sun Zhang rushed in, shouting, "Manager! Manager!" She was curious and asked, "What's wrong? Why the rush?" He panted, "The Shangyuan. They brought back over a dozen chests of treasure." The manager remained indifferent. "Isn't it just a dozen chests of treasure? What's there to be so worked up about? The island needs resources, and they'll eventually have to go through our Tianbao pavilion anyway, right?" Then the manager froze. "Wait, did you say the Shangyuan? Isn't that the ship that Li Fan guy is on?" Sun Zhang struggled to catch his breath. Exactly. No wonder he could convince Manager Zhao. He was absolutely certain they'd find treasure as soon as they set sail. This talent is just like our chief manager at Tianbao Pavilion. The manager's voice turned cold. "Go arrange a meeting. See when he's available for dinner. Also, have someone clean up the Listening Whisper Pavilion, then hand over the land deed to him." Sun Zhang bowed, understood. She muttered to herself, "Could he be a spirit treasure body?" According to legend, someone with a spirit treasure body can sense any rare treasure within their vicinity. The chief manager of Tianbao Pavilion, her sister An Nguyen Din, possessed this exact special constitution. Relying on this godlike ability, her sister built the massive Tianbao Pavilion Merchant Guild across the Songyun Sea from nothing in just over 10 years. And now, another spirit treasure body has appeared. The manager smiled slightly. "You really are extraordinary. To pull in 16 chests of treasure on your first trip. You've given me a massive surprise," Li Fan replied. "The haul this time was indeed significant, but I'm afraid it will be hard to match this success in the future." The manager stayed silent, not disagreeing. "That's only natural. How could anyone be this lucky every single time? But based on this harvest alone, it's enough for me to set up an entire fleet just for you." He bowed in acceptance. "Then I thank you, Manager Zhao." Manager Zhao's voice grew serious. "I heard that all your calculating and planning is just to secure a spot in the purifying spirit pool?" Li Fan answered, "That is correct. Even with endless wealth, after 100 years, it all turns to dust. Only by seeking the path of the immortals and achieving longevity can one truly make this life worth living." Manager Zhao stroked his chin. "To have such a heart for the immortal path at your age, I am not your equal." More than 10 years ago, when he was Li Fan's age, he had accidentally saved an immortal master. The master asked if he was willing to follow him and practice cultivation. He knew he had already passed the prime age for cultivation, and even if he tried, he might never achieve anything. Besides, the older you get, the deeper the impurities in your body become, and the more painful it is to remove them. Now that I'm older, I find myself feeling a bit of regret. Regret, unfortunately, is a medicine that doesn't exist. Among the hundreds of thousands of mortals on Luli Island, people like you are truly rare. Li Fan bowed slightly. "You flatter me, manager. What are your thoughts on getting a spot in the purifying spirit pool?" Manager Zhao hesitated. "I can't help you with that. Opening the purifying spirit pool requires an immortal master on the island to preside over it, and they are the ones who decide the spots. A year before the pool opens, the Council of Immortals announces the required materials. Various families submit the items on the list, and spots are granted based on the level of contribution. But you don't need to worry too much. Tianbao Pavilion has branches all across the islands of the Songyun Sea. When it comes to gathering resources, very few can actually outperform them." Lai Fam fell into deep thought. At Tianbao Pavilion, he had just returned from Manager Zhao's place to his small courtyard when Ton Truong showed up, clearly having waited a long time. "What business does your manager have with me?" He agreed to meet the manager. As for the property deed to Thin Pavilion that Ton Trung brought, Lai Fam didn't accept it. He walked inside as everyone bowed respectfully. A lavishly dressed woman walked toward Li Fam and formally introduced herself as the manager of Tianbao Pavilion on Lulai Island, Anvu Chan. Lai Fam introduced himself with a serious face. "Lai Fam." She let out a small laugh. Old man, you're a man of few words, aren't you?" He remained humble, saying a mere mortal really has nothing worth mentioning. The manager's lips curled into a slight smile. "Is a spirit-attuned physique not even worth mentioning in your eyes?" Lai Fam acted surprised. "Oh? I have no idea what a spirit-attuned physique is." She rested her chin on her hand. "Then how do you find treasures in the vast ocean?" He didn't look up. "It is just a gut feeling." The manager pouted. "And you still claim you aren't a spirit-attuned physique?" Seeing his expression, Anvu Chan realized he truly might not know, so she had no choice but to explain what a spirit-attuned physique was. Lai Fam finally understood and asked, "So your sister is also a spirit-attuned physique? How old is she now? What does she look like? Where was she 20 years ago, and where is she now?" The manager was stunned. "Don't tell me you're our long-lost father?" She looked at him suspiciously. "Wait, no, you don't look like us at all," Lai Fam replied. "I am just curious." The manager began to lose her patience. Fine. Curiosity about your own kind, right? I get it." Her expression turned slightly sad. "We were originally from Dalam Island in the north. Our parents died in a disaster when we were young, leaving only me and my sister to depend on each other." The manager reminisced. In her memories, she and her sister could only survive by begging, never knowing where their next meal would come from. She spoke with wonder, noting that at some point, her sister always managed to find valuables in the most unlikely places. Because of that, their lives improved, and her sister eventually founded Tien Bao Pavilion single-handedly. The manager looked down sadly. "The tragedy is that I haven't seen her in many years." Lai Fam asked casually, "Where did she go?" She looked back at the past. 3 years ago, an immortal master passing by took an interest in her and led her away. The manager was visibly moved. At first, she sent word through others to let us know she was safe, but after a while, we never heard from her again. Lai Fam prodded further. "Being taken by an immortal master. Does that mean she went to cultivate?" She looked at him with doubt. If only it were that simple. In the last letter she sent, she used a secret code only the two of us understand, telling me her current situation is extremely dangerous. She said if she didn't contact me again, it meant something terrible happened, and I shouldn't go looking for her. Lai Fam asked softly, "Could it be that her special physique brought her trouble?" The manager continued, "My sister is just a mortal. The things she can sense are only valuable to other mortals. In the eyes of those immortals, these treasures are nothing but scrap metal." She pondered. Other immortals had noticed her sister's special physique before, but none of them thought much of it. She wondered why that last immortal master decided to take her. Although her sister's fate was grim, the legacy she left behind still existed. "I can't let the Tien Bao Pavilion she worked so hard to build be destroyed in my hands." The manager hesitated. "On top of that, I made some bad calls on some items recently and lost a huge amount of money. I don't have her miraculous talent. Since her sister disappeared, Tien Bao Pavilion's business has been going downhill." She looked devastated. "The elders of the pavilion are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with me. They even want to team up with outsiders to kick me out and divide up the assets. Luckily, they are still afraid of my sister being with an immortal, so they haven't made a move yet. That is why I used the excuse of expanding from Dalam Island to Lulai Island, just to lay low for a while. I planned to build up my strength here for a few years before settling scores with them, but I never expected to find another spirit-attuned physique on this island." She looked determined. "With your help, I can definitely keep Tien Bao Pavilion under control." Li Fam tactfully declined. "I have no interest in your pavilion. My only goal is to cultivate." He recalled their previous deal. "You won't go back on your word, will you? You promised that if I helped you secure the fleet, you would get me a spot in the essence cleansing pool." The manager boasted, "Our Tien Bao Pavilion has always been built on trust. What we promised, you will definitely be done." But Lai Fam watched her warily. "But what?" The manager suddenly turned serious. "Old man, even if you enter the essence cleansing pool, so what? Removing the miasma from your body is no easy task. Every year, only about half of those who enter the pool actually succeed. Besides, the older you are, the higher the failure rate. You aren't exactly young anymore. Are you 100% sure you will make it? Everyone only gets one chance in a lifetime to enter that pool. If you fail, I am afraid you will have to say goodbye to cultivation forever." He insisted. "Even with only a 50% chance, it is worth a shot. But I hear a but in your voice." The manager looked at him and nodded with a faint smile. "Exactly. Along with my sister's last letter, she sent a pill called the Lai Tran pill. According to your sister's letter, if I take this miraculous pill, the chances of purging the toxic miasma from my body will skyrocket. If I pair it with the purifying spirit pond, then even an old guy like me has a massive chance of succeeding." Lai Fam was skeptical. If this pill was so amazing, why hadn't she taken it herself? She explained it clearly. "Old man, not everyone is as obsessed with becoming an immortal as you are. My only wish is to run this business well, and then protect the heavenly treasure pavilion that my sister left behind." He nodded in agreement. "I see, everyone has their own path." The manager was overjoyed. "So, Does that mean you agree, old man? Lai Fam turned to leave. Let me think about it. I will give you an answer in 3 days. The manager agreed. Fine then, I will be waiting for your news. He called back as he walked away. Farewell. She clenched her fists, hoping that she had not misjudged him this time. After some investigation, Lai Fam confirmed that the manager was not lying about the dust-shedding pill. 3 days later, they met again, and Lai Fam accepted her request. They agreed that before the spirit pond opened, he would help the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion collect a specific amount of treasures. Once the spirit pond opened, the manager would hand over the dust-shedding pill to Lai Fam. To show her sincerity, she even gave him the deed to the Listening Silence Pavilion. Since they had an agreement, he did not hold back and tucked it into his robes. With that, Lai Fam moved house once again. The Listening Silence Pavilion was located in the heart of Luli Island. Even though it was near the marketplace, it felt as secluded as being deep in the mountains. During his year at the pavilion, he completed 3 expeditions for the island, bringing back crates of treasure that shocked everyone. At the same time, he successfully won a fleet for the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion. From then on, every time their ships went to sea, Lai Fam followed. Over the past year, the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion made a fortune, nearly matching their entire total from the previous year. He also built up a strong reputation within the pavilion. Everyone who met Lai Fam treated him with great respect. On the other hand, he did not neglect his cultivation. Over the past year, Lai Fam spent every spare moment training hard. Finally, something happened that made him very happy. The charging progress of the Huanzhen artifact had accelerated. Before this, the charging progress only relied on natural time, taking 20 years to reach 100%. Once it reached its limit of 200%, it would stop. Lai Fam had been in the cultivation world for over a year, and the progress was at 6 to 7%. But he discovered that the energy level had now reached 15%, meaning the charging speed had nearly doubled. Aside from the heart-cleansing mantra, Lai Fam had not encountered anything else that could possibly help it. The only explanation was that practicing the Xuanhuang heart-cleansing mantra could speed up the charging of Huanzhen. In addition to the charging speed, both his physical and mental age limits had increased significantly. As time passed, there was quickly only 1 year left until the purifying spirit pond opened. The manager said with a bright smile, "Old man, the island has announced the list of materials the Immortal Master needs this time." She pondered, noting that most of the materials were quite common. Only the Star Sea quicksand is something I have never heard of. It seems the key to securing a spot this time lies with this Star Sea quicksand. Wu Chan added, I have never heard of it either. It looks like we will have to ask the people from the Manhwa Merchant Guild. He sighed. Those people are like starving ghosts. I am afraid we will have to pay a heavy price. Lai Fam was determined to get the Star Sea quicksand no matter what. I must secure a spot at the Spirit Pond. The Wanhua Merchant Guild was not a local guild from the Pine Cloud Sea, but came from a continent tens of thousands of miles away. It was said they were backed by immortals, allowing them to easily cross the endless oceans to do business on this remote island. Wu Chan continued, We have 1 year to prepare. A representative from the Wanhua Merchant Guild will stop by the Pine Cloud Sea in 3 months. I can contact him then. Lai Fam shook his head. They could not put all their hopes on the Merchant Guild. Over the past year, Luli Island had taken in many refugees from all over the Pine Cloud Sea. Perhaps someone among them knew about the Star Sea quicksand. Other factions were also searching for it, so they needed to stay vigilant. Once the materials for the purifying spirit pond were announced, the news spread like wildfire across the island. Even commoners knew the major powers were looking for something called Star Sea quicksand. Today, Tu Hang suddenly arrived at the Listening Silence Pavilion. Lai Fam offered him tea. I wonder what brings you here, little brother, Tu Hang asked. I heard you have been looking for Star Sea quicksand lately, brother Lai. He nodded. That is right. I am getting old, and the spirit pond is my only hope for cultivation. Do you know about it? The boy smiled. When the immortals came to our Dailai kingdom, they promised that if we gathered enough materials, they would take a group of people to the cultivation world. Star Sea quicksand was on that list. He became alert. Oh? Why do I not remember that? The boy scratched his head. When the announcement was made to the public, several items were removed from the list to be reserved as spots for the great families of Dai Lai. The item assigned to the Prince of Zhenin Mansion to find was exactly this Star Sea quicksand. Li Fan reached out his hand and said, Go ahead, tell me, what are your terms? Xiao Heng's expression turned somber. Back when you paid for Zhang Yu's funeral, you did me a great favor. I really shouldn't be asking for anything, but honestly, life on Luli Island is just too hard. I don't have your incredible skills, Brother Lee. I'm still stuck living in the slums. Lee Fan cut him off. Say no more, little brother. I know how tough things have been for you. I absolutely must have this item. As long as you can provide a lead, tell me whatever you need, and I'll do my best to make it happen. Upon hearing that, the boy clasped his hands in gratitude. Then I'll thank you in advance, Brother Lee. To be honest, this thing isn't actually that rare. It's just that the cultivators call it something different than we commoners do. Truth is, Star Sea quicksand is really just meteorites from the sky. Lee Fan stroked his beard and thought, Star Sea quicksand. So that's what it is. But is any stellar core all right? Are there any other specific requirements? The boy replied, Yes, Brother Lee, there are. Then, Xiao Heng slowly began to list the specific details. First off, the meteorite has to look good. If the surface has holes or pits, it won't work. Plus, the overall weight of a single piece must be at least 50 grams. I listened closely and committed every detail to memory. After a moment, I smiled and said, All right, I've got it. Now tell me, little brother, what is it that you want? Xiao Heng scratched his cheek sheepishly. I just want a decent place to live, and maybe a job that isn't too backbreaking. Of course, it'd be even better if I could have a few servants to help me clean up. Li Fan burst out laughing. You're the son of the mighty Prince of Zhenan, and this is all you're asking for? Why don't we add a bit more to that? I still have quite a bit of influence here at Tianbao Pavilion. The boy shook his head and declined. I know my own limits. Being able to eat well and live comfortably is enough. I don't need to live such a stressful life. I'm already satisfied. If I suddenly came into wealth that made everyone jealous, it would only bring disaster. I won't push my luck. After chatting for a bit longer, Xiao Heng prepared to take his leave. Li Fan asked him if he had any future plans. After all, it wasn't easy to reach the cultivation world. He couldn't just let the trip go to waste. Xiao Heng waved his hand and said, Maybe later. Honestly, I have zero interest in cultivation. That Xuanhuang mind-cleansing incantation makes me fall asleep the moment I look at it. After seeing Xiao Heng off, I went straight to Tianbao Pavilion. After hearing the news, Wu Zhen looked a bit skeptical. Star Sea quicksand? It's really that simple? Li Fan replied. He probably wasn't lying, but we still need to verify it. Didn't you say the traveling merchants from the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce would be arriving at Luli Island soon? We might as well use that chance to feel them out and see if it's true. She nodded and said, That's a good idea. If we can save some money, that would be for the best. Li Fan pondered for a moment. Regardless, we should quietly start buying up meteorites that fit the description first. Not many people know about this yet, but that might not be the case for long. Also, when you buy them, mix them in with other goods to avoid suspicion. At the same time, have someone spread fake rumors about Star Sea quicksand to muddy the waters. She looked at him with pure admiration. You're really something else, mister. I thought you were just a spirit-communicating treasure body, but I didn't expect you to be such a master strategist. Wu Zhen asked curiously, What did you do before all this, mister? Li Fan gave a vague answer. Oh, I just taught people a few things. She puffed out her cheeks when she heard that. Yeah, right. I don't believe you for a second. With that, he turned to leave. All right, I'll leave the rest to you. I need to get back to my training. Unless it's an absolute emergency, do not disturb me. Oh, and that thing I promised, Xiao Heng, make sure you take care of that too. Wu Zhen clenched her fists. Great fortune? How is even a small task like helping Xiao Heng considered great fortune? Has my ability to sense luck and misfortune stopped working? While I don't have my sister's ability to sense treasures, I've been able to predict good and bad omens since I was a child. Ever since I met this man, every task he gives me feels like it's glowing with great fortune. You have to understand, before I met him, I had never encountered a great fortune omen in my entire life. Even though I don't know what he'll achieve in the future, I trust my gut. I have to do everything in my power to help him. And so, under Wu Zhen's orders, Tianbao Pavilion went into full gear, pumping out a massive amount of fake information regarding Star Sea quicksand. Other factions saw that something was up, so they chose to sit back and watch for a while. However, one group decided to just buy everything up first and ask questions later. Even if it's fake, they figured they could just resell it, so they bought anything remotely related to the rumors. Seeing this, the other factions couldn't stay still anymore and joined the buying frenzy. In an instant, prices on Luli Island skyrocketed and chaos broke out. As the one who started it all, I stayed perfectly quiet, focusing on my cultivation inside Tingyu Pavilion. 3 months later, Wu Zhen finally got in touch with a merchant from the Tianhe Chamber of Commerce. This morning, she and I boarded a small boat belonging to Tianbao Pavilion. We left Luli Island and headed 10 miles north to the designated meeting spot at sea. Suddenly, a massive airship appeared in the sky, and a booming laugh echoed out. Ha ha ha! Manager Wu, it's been a long time. The airship hovered above us before slowly descending onto the water's surface. Wu Zhen glanced at Li Fan and smirked. Hee. Seeing an airship for the first time is bound to be a shock, right? When she saw that he was still completely calm, she felt a bit annoyed. Seriously? Not even a tiny reaction? The merchant stepped down with a wide grin. Manager Wu, it's been a while. She replied, Merchant Wu, the last time we saw each other was 3 years ago, wasn't it? He reached out his hand, thinking about how fast time flies. This is the person Wu Chan introduced, the elder from Tianbao Pavilion that we've invited. Hearing that, he cupped his hands in a respectful greeting. It's a pleasure, a real pleasure, Manager Ann. Why don't we go inspect the goods first? I'm afraid that after today, it might be a long time before we see each other again. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean by that? Has something happened? The envoy shrugged. I don't know the exact details myself. It's just that a few days ago, we suddenly received an urgent notice from headquarters. All merchant guild agents in the Tungvan Sea are to suspend their current operations immediately and return home as fast as possible. If I hadn't already set this date to trade with you, I'd probably be halfway home by now. That's why we can't afford any delays with this deal. We have to move fast. Wu Chan thought to himself that the only reason Tianbao Pavilion could expand so much on Luli Island was because they had the backing of the Van Hoa Merchant Guild. Now that the Van Hoa Merchant Guild is suddenly pulling out of the Tungvan Sea, what's going to happen to Tianbao Pavilion's business? Why on earth would the great families make such a sudden decision like this?